channel.
Good morning, thanks for your company. It's a tinderbox in the Middle East as Lebanon has accused Israel of orchestrating that shocking attack on pages belonging to the Hezbollah militia group.
At least 9 are confirmed dead and thousands injured in the biggest security breach since fighting began last October.
Israel is suspected of planting 5,000 explosives. The UK and the US are left scrambling to work out what happened and whether this could trigger an escalation.
Cabinet ministers raise eyebrows as it comes to light. They accepted more than £9,000 worth of tickets to Taylor Swift concerts over the summer.
Inflation figures due out in an hour's time. We'll be the first to know, and will it be a marker of how the Labour government is tackling the rising cost of living?
And elsewhere, some good news. The Princess of Wales delights the nation as she holds an early years meeting in her first royal engagement since undergoing chemotherapy.
And as today marks 10 years since the Scottish independence referendum, we find out whether there's still appetite for yet another vote.
And the inquiry continues into how nurse killer Lucy Letby got away with her crimes in broad daylight as the families continue to search for answers. As
one London borough threatens to ban e-bikes, we're asking if it's time to axe them altogether.
And in the sport this morning, Aston Villa and Liverpool scored 3 each, both winning away in the first Champions League games of the season. In the Carabao Cup, Manchester United score 7, Preston and Fulham go through 32 penalties to decide a winner, and Glasgow will host the next Commonwealth Games after Victoria and Australia decided to pull out.
Good morning. Another foggy start for some of us. Most of the cloud, though, should burn away by lunchtime, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GBNews Breakfast.
You want to talk about the Royals this morning? Yeah,
I think it's some good news. I mean, it's all kicking off in the Middle East again, but let's focus perhaps on some positive royal developments.
Yes, a closed-door meeting for Kate yesterday, the Princess of Wales, the first time she's held any of her sort of private meetings of this kind since she was diagnosed with cancer or being treated for cancer earlier on in the year. Of course, we saw her at Trooping of the Colour, didn't we? And we saw her as patron of the LTA at Wimbledon. But is this a sign, and I think it is, that she's on the mend, that things are going to return to normal slowly but surely?
She did say in that in the statement of that lovely video, maybe we can show it again during the show because it is so good, that she would try and fit in a couple of engagements before the end of the year. So there we have it.
Yes, I think that she'll also be appearing. We're expecting where is it? Commemorations in November. What have we got coming up? I think on the spot now.
Armistice Day.
Armistice Day. There we go.
Yeah, and also Harry due back on Monday.
Yeah, on his own.
Yeah.
No Meghan.
On his Todd.
Plenty of royal news, but as Ben was saying there, it's bad news coming out of the Middle East. In Lebanon yesterday, at least 9 were killed, nearly 3,000 injured, 200 of them critically, including members of the Hezbollah terrorist group.
Yeah, a shocking incident, not least the logistics of it. How did they do it? Was it devices that overheated somehow with a hack, or was it explosives planted? We're still yet to find out. Maybe we'll find more today. But the incident happened when the pages of Hezbollah terrorists exploded in what's described as the biggest security breach since fighting broke out with Israel almost a year ago.
Well, overnight, a senior Lebanese source said 5,000 devices had been tampered with by Israel's spy service, Mossad.
Former British Army spokesman Major Mike Shearer joins us now, maybe with some answers. Good morning, Mike. Thanks for joining us so early. What is the situation then? How did Mossad, if it was indeed them behind this, which it probably was, how did they do this? Do we know any more yet?
I don't think we know too much more at the moment, but this is a massive security breach on behalf of Hezbollah's leadership, because it was about a year ago, I think, the message went out that to the ground troops, so to speak, that we must stop using our mobile devices because they can be geopolitically tracked or geo-tracked, I should say. They can be listened into, let's go old school and do something else. Well, I mean, they signaled that to whoever has done this. Let's be clear, right now we don't know. The likely finger is pointing at Mossad's operatives, but whoever did it was given a clear signal that they had an opening to do something. And we have resulted in these devices being manufactured. Nobody knows exactly where yet, and on whose behalf, and it has ended up in these casualties.
And among those injured, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, the Lebanese saying that this is a violation of their sovereignty. And understandably, people very concerned that this could be a significant escalation in the Middle East. And it's always worrying, isn't it, when the Foreign Office issue a late-night statement calling for calm heads and de-escalation. This is being taken incredibly seriously.
Yes, indeed. I mean, let's be clear about this. Israel is now fighting for its life on 4 fronts, and all directed by the Iranian powers. And so we have Iran as the paymaster, if you like, and the quartermaster, making sure that its proxies have whatever it needs to disrupt whatever it can with Israel. We've had missiles from the Houthis in Yemen. We have Hamas at its work as we speak. And of course, we have Hezbollah. Now, there's been no effective and overt intervention, if you like, from the administration in the Lebanon. So Israel has to take this fight to those proxies. It can't just sit back and be reactive day on day, because obviously they have to get it right all the time, whereas the proxies just need to get it right once to inflict terrible atrocities on Israel.
Yeah. Mike, Israel has been criticised this morning because, accused of being indiscriminate in this attack, if, again, indeed it was Mossad, a 10-year-old girl among one of the people who died. Have they got a case to answer there?
Look, I've said on this programme before, war is a messy business. Now, whoever has put these devices together has done it on the intelligence given to them by the leadership of Hezbollah. So whoever was likely to be holding these pagers was likely to be a malign operative against Israel, and sometimes that is going to go wrong. And I'm afraid that is the messy business of warfare.
Shocking, some of the footage that we're showing this morning. I'm not sure which float we've got, which we can sort of replay, but there's a picture of a man going about his business, picking some fruit in a market, and he has his leg blown off. This is the footage that I'm talking about, that guy at the back there. And the injuries that people have sustained, I mean, the word maimed is overused often by journalists, but these are thousands of people simultaneously being maimed, as Ben says, children among those, because, of course, you have a pinging device. Who runs towards it? Often children. The fact that Israel hasn't commented, I mean, does the silence almost speak 1,000 words?
Well, that is not unusual for the Israeli administration. And of course, you say there's a man going about his business. Terrorists have to eat as well. So, you know, it can look innocuous. But if it was Israel, then I think through customary international law, they would probably be having an absolute right to be taking the fight to the people that are threatening them on a daily basis.
And just last question, if you don't mind, Mike. Robert Jenrick has urged the government, in a slightly separate but I guess linked story. Robert Jenrick, the Tory leadership frontrunner, has urged the government to prescribe Iranian Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organisation. Is that a good idea? Is it something you'd back?
100%. You know, people are speaking about, will this be an escalation in the region? But no one ever follows through with what that means. As far as Israel is concerned, how much more of an escalation could it be? I would not be surprised. Well, look, when we look back to October last year, when the terrible atrocities occurred in Israel, it was no surprise to me that actually someone was trying to disrupt the good relationships that Israel was having with Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and beyond. And without a shadow of a doubt, that has to be Iran mobilizing its proxies in order to disrupt all of that.
Yeah.
So if there is going to be escalation, I suspect it isn't like most people will think. And it just won't be an internal issue going on in the region. It could well be the West marrying up with the Saudis and the Emirates and taking a bit more of a robust stance with the Iranians.
OK. All right, Major Michael Shearer, former British Army spokesman, thank you for joining us this morning. It's slightly alarming as well, because some security experts and tech experts saying that, you know, because we don't know exactly how this happened yet, could our mobile phones be used in some sort of attack where they are deliberately overheated, exploding in our pockets?
There's a certain way to get to everybody, because everybody has a phone. Let us know your thoughts on our top story this morning. In the meantime, we're going to turn now to British politics and the spotlight remaining on Labour and the controversy surrounding donations and the so-called freebies for cabinet members.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson are among those who accepted free tickets to see Taylor Swift in London this summer. In total, cabinet ministers took a whopping stack of £9,000 worth of tickets to see the US superstar at Wembley. And it's also emerged the Prime Minister's wife, Lady Victoria Starmer, accepted 2 free tickets worth hundreds of pounds to see not just one concert, but 2 concerts.
Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us in the studio. Now, it's my understanding that the cabinet ministers who attended these hospitality tickets to see Taylor Swift have all declared their tickets. They've appeared on their register of members' interests. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing, but it's whiffy in the sense that, you know, hardworking British people have had to fork out a huge amount of money to go to these gigs. A lot of people simply couldn't afford it. This is a government that are bringing in changes that a lot of people are finding shocking for a Labour government, not least in relation to pensioners and their heating. And here they are, living it up as a freebie.
Indeed, they came in, they got elected largely with that word change, didn't they? And people will look and think, well, here we go again, they're all the same, I suspect. So in addition to, and important to say, as you say, Isabel, no rules have been broken. But the Prime Minister himself has now accepted, while Leader of the Opposition, and now over £100,000 of freebies. Now, that's more than any party leader in recent times. So, you know, the dresses for his wife are just the last thing. Now, it's emerged that his wife has another 2 free Taylor Swift tickets. We already knew that they got £4,000 worth of Taylor Swift tickets to go and see her in June back at the O2, so £1,000 a ticket those were. And, of course, he loves Arsenal, and he basically said to journalists, I was there in Washington the other day, it was Rome, sorry, losing track of where I'm losing track of where we were. In Rome the other day, when we asked him over and over again about this story, he basically said about the football, look, you know, I have to accept hospitality. I obviously couldn't be in the stand. You know, I think that's going a bit too far. I mean, some people will say, well, you could buy those
or you just
tickets.
Don't have to go. If you
could buy those
tickets.
Feel
safe, you could just...
So he's had £18,500 in Arsenal tickets, and he's had 40 sets of free tickets as Labour leader. And I should say, these figures are in The Guardian. I mean, of course, lots of right-wing newspapers are going after him on this, but The Guardian has also broken down all of these and highlighting that he does have a taste for freebies above and beyond what other leaders have had, and Lord Ali particularly, you know, we still haven't had an answer as to why this big Labour donor was given a temporary pass to Downing Street. We're still asking. We still haven't had an explanation as to why that was.
Some suggestion they were organising a thank you party for donors shortly after they'd been elected, and that his pass was taken away as soon as that event had been.
He was helping with the transition, but we asked again specifically in Rome the other day exactly what that was, and we're still none the wiser. I mean,
sorry to interrupt. Do you think he cares about this sort of, I'll call it, scandal rolling on? Because his wife, Lady Starmer, went to London Fashion Week this week, you know, full in the knowledge of what was embroiling around her and the government.
Provocateur.
Keir Starmer seems quite happy to put pictures of his Taylor Swift Arsenal matches on Instagram and social media. Do you think he actually cares?
My impression is, and having sort of seen him face to face and us grilling him on this, that he simply doesn't think he's done anything wrong. And technically, he has done nothing wrong. He is absolutely going down the line, well, these are the rules, I follow the rules are important. There's a difference between following the rules and what might be politically smart, though, I think, at a time when you're taking money off pensioners.
Well, he, of all people, as a lawyer, should know that justice has to be done, but it also has to be seen to be done. And he has to give that impression of being not only a little bit boring, but squeaky clean, because that was the change that presumably people were voting for. Let's see how this rolls on. For now, thanks very much indeed, Catherine, for bringing us up to date on that £73,000 worth of freebies.
And also, I mentioned it, was it yesterday or the day before? But lots of you on Your Say this morning, gbnews.com/Your Say, saying Rishi Sunak used to go to Southampton games when he was Prime Minister in the stands. Of course, he had, I guess, security around him, but it was OK
and he's a billionaire. He could have hired a box and done whatever he wanted himself. But anyway.
Arsenal tickets, they're all right for some. I'd like a few of those. Send them my way. Anyway, it's been 10 years since the Scottish independence referendum, where 45% of the nation voted for a fresh start.
There was a high turnout, 84.6%, the highest recorded for an election or referendum since 1910.
Our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, has this report.
Tomorrow is our opportunity of a lifetime. All we have to do is to go into a polling station and put a cross on a piece of paper.
10 years ago today, a record number of Scots did just that. But 55% of those crosses said no to independence. Before the first vote was even cast, Scotland was divided.
Yes, because we need to take responsibility for our own affairs.
Definitely no, no, no.
I think it's time for us to stand on our own 2 feet.
I am still undecided. A lot of to-ing and froing.
Arguably, the once-in-a-generation narrative has been a thorn in the side of the movement ever since. But despite all the routes blocked through Westminster and the courts, SNP First Minister John Swinney says independence remains urgent and essential.
I will make sure independence is understood as the route to a stronger and a fairer country. Understood not as nice to have, but as urgent and essential here and now. That is how we will make independence happen.
In the days before the referendum, thousands filled Scotland's streets in a sea of saltires. But this past weekend, former First Minister Alex Salmond addressed mere hundreds at an event marking the milestone anniversary.
We're here today to demonstrate that we can recapture that mood of optimism, determination of people wanting to reclaim their country. That's what we have to do.
A decade after campaigning for Great Britain being better together, Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar remains optimistic for Scotland's future, despite the prevailing negativity surrounding the topic.
I think there's lots that people can look back on and feel quite negative about, but actually despite that negativity, despite those challenges, I actually feel really optimistic about the future, because I think it's really important that we don't just think about the past and reflect on the rights and wrongs of that debate. I think it's really important actually that we think about the future.
Should Scotland be an independent country? An unambiguous question asked and answered by the people in 2014. The question now is, will the people of Scotland in this generation or the next ever be asked again? Tony Maguire, GB News.
I thought that was meant to be... Sorry to interrupt.
No, you
Apologies.
weren't.
I thought that was meant to be once in a lifetime vote, by the way, just a passing comment.
I know.
Back for another crack, are you?
I know, that's the way with these referendums. People who don't get the result they want always want another go. Right, let's take a look at the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning as it's 6:19. And from today, junior doctors working across the NHS will be referred to as resident doctors. The British Medical Association fought for the name change, which health ministers say will help reset the relationship between NHS doctors and the government. It comes just days after these resident doctors in England accepted the government's offer of a 22% pay rise, ending an 18-month dispute.
And did you see it last night? I caught a brief glimpse. Stargazers were treated to a rare partial eclipse of a supermoon. Eclipses rarely coincide with supermoons, making the event last night even more unusual. And it's only the second supermoon this year, and it's been called the harvest moon. Experts hope it will last until Thursday morning.
The Princess of Wales has returned to work and resumed royal engagements following the conclusion of her chemotherapy. In a small step to resuming duties, the Princess had a meeting on Tuesday behind closed doors in Windsor Castle about her early childhood project. Just last week, Catherine released a video message revealing she has finished her treatment and is now, thankfully, in recovery. Let's have a listen to what the Princess had to say.
You lead the way.
As the summer comes to an end, I cannot tell you what a relief it is to have finally completed my chemotherapy treatment. Doing what I can to stay cancer-free is now my focus. Although I have finished chemotherapy, my path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
Lovely. Well done, Princess of Wales. May it long continue. Apparently, it's going to be... last night was very nice. Another lovely sunset.
My
The moon was nice.
Stunning skies. Yeah, absolutely.
And this week's going to be fairly balmy as well, apparently, according to the weather. Annie Shuttleworth can give us all the details.
According to the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of Western Wales, southwest England and parts of Western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time now for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the equivalent of an extra £3,000 in your bank account every month for a whole year.
Yep, 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to make it yours.
Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public.
Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Now, Cancer Research UK has found that roughly half of people experiencing cancer symptoms don't contact their doctor for 6 months.
They say one of the most common reasons people are putting off a visit to the GP is because of one long waiting list, guilt about putting more strain on the NHS as well.
Well, let's talk about this some more. These are the findings from a health information manager at Cancer Research UK, Amy Hess. Good morning to you, Amy.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
This is worrying, isn't it? Because we know the thing about cancer is catching it early if you want the best possible outcome. You know, is this a change? Are we seeing more people more reluctant to come forward? And is this a crisis with, you know, poor access to our doctors?
So, as you say, spotting cancer at an early stage means treatment's more likely to be successful. For instance, with bowel cancer, one of the most common types of cancer, when it's diagnosed at its most early stage, more than 9 in 10 people will survive their disease for 5 years or more. And this falls to just 1 in 10 if it's diagnosed at the most advanced stage. So it is really important people come forward if they have symptoms unusual for you. But as you say, people are delaying contacting their GP. There are multiple reasons for this. We know people, as you say, difficulty getting an appointment, being worried about making a fuss, people thinking their symptoms aren't anything to worry about. And these aren't new barriers, but they're barriers that it's really important to tackle. And that's where Tesco and Cancer Research UK come in with their new campaign to help people to understand more about early diagnosis and give them more confidence to come forward with possible signs and symptoms of cancer.
So this campaign is that, you know, if shoppers they're concerned about maybe a lump or something, or the discoloration of a mole, they can speak to a pharmacist in store. Are there any sort of general symptoms or signs that you may have cancer which you could advise people on now? What are we looking for aside from, say, lumps, which I guess is the most obvious?
There are over 200 different types of cancer, so it wouldn't be possible to know all the symptoms. Some symptoms are going to be more specific to a specific area in the body. So that could be coughing up blood, it could be blood in your poo, a cough that won't go away, a change in mole, and things can also be more general. So that might be unexplained weight loss, fatigue or pain. The most important message here is to listen to your body. You know your body best. If something's not quite right for you, it's really important to get it checked out. And in most cases, it won't be cancer. But if it is, getting it caught early can make all the difference.
A lot about how Britain is lagging behind our sort of parallel countries with comparable economies when it comes to cancer diagnosis and treatment. What do we need to do to try and improve that? Is it about people coming forward more quickly, or is it actually about the speed with which they then get the treatment that they need?
We need to see changes across the system. We need to see the resource being given. We need to see the funding. It's not just about people coming forward. It's a combination of a range of different things. But we do know...
Oh, she's gone. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. That was Amy Hurst, the Health Information Manager from Cancer Research UK. Yeah, of course, it goes without saying, if you've had any symptoms, any concerns, any worries, if you're feeling a bit strange in yourself, go and get yourself checked out. I think half the problem is we get scared of being called sort of hypochondriacs and you're just overreacting.
Of course, you don't want to be the worried well or the time waster.
No.
I think we're being told we need to hurry up by the sound of the music. We're going to tease the sport now. Harry Kane has broken his record in the Champions League, I think. Let's find out from Coity in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Wednesday morning. In Surrey, the southbound M23, a lane closed on the exit slip road due to a broken down car at junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. In Worcestershire, the northbound M5 partially blocked at the minute. That's due to a broken down vehicle there, junction 5 at Droitwich to junction 4A for the M42 interchange. And also 2 at the moment in the Cardinal area in Argyll and Bute, the A83 at the moment. A landslip and that convoy system in place there. That's going to affect you near to the A814, so just be aware of that, of course. And also now in Kent, the westbound M26, pretty heavy around the M25 at junction 5 this morning. In Great Western Railway services, buses instead of trains, that's going to affect you near to Gunners Lake due to engineering works this morning. Across the UK, you're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
When I knew that I was doing this segment this week, I feel like this week was a real homework task for me because I'll be honest, I haven't been around Scottish food much in my life, but I obviously know all the obvious. And I thought I'd bring in a selection of some of, I guess, the sort of the quintessential culinary delights of the north. I mean, we have in front of us haggis.
I think we should begin with some haggis.
So, Michael, I've never eaten haggis before. This is going to be the first time.
Well, have you eaten anything like haggis before? Have you eaten anything that is made from the intestines of an animal?
I mean, I've had things like chopped liver and, you know, a bit of offal here and there.
Well, there we are. I mean, I got a great surprise. I was holding a great... When I was in government, I was holding a great party in Scotland, and I had a lot of Spanish visitors, and I was offering them haggis, and I thought that they would be astonished by haggis and maybe repelled. But when they ate it, they said, oh, no, this is morcilla. So, you know, there is an equivalent in Spain.
Absolutely.
So if I recall, and you've probably been mugging it up, which I have not, but haggis is made within the stomach of a sheep.
Yes.
And you take the heart and the lungs and some other part of the sheep and you mash it up.
With onions, oatmeal, suet.
Yes.
And it's stuffed into the sheep's stomach. But a lot of the haggis you get these days, especially sort of the slightly cheaper varieties in supermarkets, it's usually an artificial casing. Oh. You know what? This is actually quite nice.
I think it's absolutely heavenly. And
it's very savoury.
To me, it's two things. Yes, to me, it's two things. It's both the taste and the texture. You quite rightly referred to the oatmeal going in there. So it's got this crunchy, granular sort of texture. Marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Time now to go through all the latest sports news, including a rather momentous night for our Harry Kane.
Good old Harry.
Oh, your favourite.
Good old Harry. Well, you know, it's funny that we'll start with Bayern Munich, but Bayern Munich beat Dinamo Zagreb 9-1 yesterday in the Champions League. The reason Harry Kane broke Wayne Rooney's record, the most goals by any English player now in the Champions League, so he's now up to 33, scored 4 goals. 3 of those were penalties. Scored 3 penalties yesterday.
Oh, that doesn't count.
You know what?
Come on.
You know what? It's funny you should say that because there's a lot of strikers that I do know that have got records and they're going, yeah, but none of mine were penalties. None of mine were penalties. But there you go. Well done, Harry. A few other results in the Champions League. So it was good. Young boys got smashed by Aston Villa 3-0 yesterday. 41-year absence for Aston Villa from the European Cup, although it's now Champions League. Won very easily, couple of disallowed goals. Wasn't too testing. They wore black armbands as well for Gary Shaw. Now, Gary Shaw, he was a real heartthrob in the day. He played in 82 and he played in the European Cup winning side and passed away after a fall last week. So it's really sad about Gary Shaw. And he's a real Villa legend and someone I've met a few times as well. So they paid tribute to Gary Shaw. And it was nice that Unai Emery dedicated the win to him as well. So that was nice.
I'm glad. I'm not a Villa fan, of course, but I'm glad Villa are back on the European stage because they're a big enough club. They
Absolutely.
deserve it. And,
Well, I mean, they've had their ups and downs. I mean, they were relegated to the Championship and now under Unai Emery, and we spoke about him yesterday, how good he is.
Yeah.
So very good for them. AC Milan 1, Liverpool 3. Liverpool went 1-0 down. A very professional, excellent job. You can't argue with that. I mean, Arne Slot has inherited... See, this is the difference, is that when you get managers, new managers go into clubs, it's usually because the last manager's been fired. So what they're actually doing, they're inheriting a team that is not winning. Whereas Arne Slot, you know, they go, oh, it's a difficult act to follow with Jurgen Klopp. It's not really, because he's got a ready-made side to go straight into. So they were excellent, and he's just done a few, just tinkering a little bit. But they were excellent last night, 1-3-1. Arne Slot, and it was also his birthday yesterday.
Oh, of course, yeah, 46, wasn't it?
40, very good.
No,
Let's hear what Arne Slot said after he was asked about his birthday after the game.
Only 4 other managers have won a Champions League tie on their birthday, including Sir Bobby Robson, Roberto Mancini, Arsene Wenger. It's pretty good company.
It's pretty good company, but I hope to do more special things in the future and be in the special company of these legends of the game, instead of only winning a tie at your birthdays.
You know what you can learn a little bit about when you just see them? He looks happy, he looks cheerful, he looks like a nice fella.
Yeah.
I like the cut of his jib, I do.
I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah. Well done,
Never
Arne
enough,
Slot.
though. Always want more of these people.
They do, but, you know, there's always that steel there.
Yeah.
So although they lost to... We spoke about that, didn't we, about them losing to Nottingham Forest at the weekend. He was saying, I can't see how we did because we're playing so well. So they were very good. So tonight, Manchester City play Inter Milan. Celtic play Slovan Bratislava, who are from... Who said Slovakia? Very good. The lowest-ranked team in the Champions League, so they play them tonight. I've got a little bit of Carabao Cup for you as well, if we've got time. We've got a little bit.
Briefly.
Stoke 1, Fleetwood
0.
1. Blackpool 0.
Really? Fleetwood? They bagged a draw against Stoke?
They did, but Stoke won on penalties.
Ah.
Penalties. Blackpool lost to Sheffield Wednesday. Brentford beat Orient 3-1. Everton have lost again.
Oh, no.
But they went out to Southampton on penalties. But the Preston-Fulham game, the most penalties ever seen in the Carabao Cup. I said it was 32. It was more than that because 2 were missed. They won 16-15 on penalties, and it went on almost as long as the whole damn game went.
Imagine being the player who missed that pen.
I know, but that's the thing.
It's all on you.
But they repeat it because they had to come back and take another one.
Yeah.
Because the goalkeepers are taking them, they have to take another one. And Manchester United beat Barnsley 7-0. Eric Ten Hag, it's the biggest win of him at Manchester United. It's all, oh, we were magnificent, we were this. It was Barnsley. No,
yeah, it's the league. It's the League Cup. Come on.
It's the Carabao Cup. It was...
Also, did you, Isabel? You mentioned it's Ronaldo's birthday.
Yeah, it's Ronaldo's birthday. Don't ask me how old.
You know what?
Okay.
I'm always saying How old do you think they are?
Oh, I can look it up.
Ronnie's
40,
36,
I think it's probably 63, 64 now.
Are we talking Brazilian Ronaldo?
No, we're talking about Ronaldo, the now playing in Saudi Arabia. Now
I think he's 36, isn't he?
36?
I think so.
He's playing far too long.
Greatest player ever. Better than Messi.
40... No. 41?
48.
What?
Hang on.
48? He's not 48.
Oh,
75, I reckon.
Sorry.
He is...
Please feel free to talk amongst yourself while we look this.
Sorry, guys. He's 39 years old.
39.
Still banging them in Saudi Arabia. Greatest player ever.
Second greatest.
Better than Messi. Anyway, thank you, Paul. Good stuff.
Thank you.
We'll be back in the next hour.
OK, thank you. Still to come, we're going through the papers with Claire Muldoon and Scarlett Maguire. Don't move a muscle.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
But let's get stuck in. Prince Harry, he's consulted former aides about a possible partial return to the UK as he seeks to repair his public image, that is according to the Daily Mail.
Who wants him? I'm sorry. This is, of course, he's got his book Spare. The paperback comes out later this year. Now, he's not updating it, but he'll want to promote it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He says he's not doing any interviews, but we're talking about him now, we're talking about Spare.
Yeah.
And is he going to come back with his wife? What about the children? Because apparently it's not safe for his wife and children in this country, according to Harry, even though he took his wife to Colombia, which is much less safe than Britain, in my view.
It's absurd. Anyway, he was able to attend his uncle's funeral quite easily.
He did.
Nobody knew he was coming. He said he wasn't, and then he did. And he was perfectly safe.
And he would have had the same security as every other member of the royal family who attended that event.
Yeah.
But, of course, he didn't speak to his brother at the funeral.
No, he wouldn't, would he?
So if he's trying to fix it, honestly, a funeral is where you should put all differences aside.
Yeah. Because
it's not about you, it's about respect to the person, the family of the person who's gone, which was his uncle. It was his... Diana's sister's husband had died. So, yet they didn't speak. They didn't speak in the church, they didn't speak when they left the church. Incredible, isn't it?
It's awful because that moment is when you realise that we are all mortal. And at that point, all other things should transcend that, but not...
Well, this move is being branded as Operation Bring Harry In From the Cold, because apparently he's a bit fed up with his life in Montecito. Does that mean with his wife?
I don't know.
Oh, no. Apparently he's dissatisfied with advice from his American-based image expert.
Well, they've had about 10 of them, haven't they? They're on to their number 11.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going through the papers in the company of Claire Muldoon and Scarlett Maguire this morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Ben and Isabel. We want to start with a story that actually hasn't made the printed copies of the papers because it happened, or the news broke late last night, but it's on all the newspaper websites this morning. And this is news that a German woman on a British catamaran she lost her leg in a shark attack off Gran Canaria and then had a heart attack in the air ambulance on the way to the hospital and died. Now, these sorts of incidents are incredibly rare, although there is a sort of thriving shark population off the coast of Gran Canaria. But these sorts of things, incredibly rare. And, of course, really popular with British tourists. A lot of people are very concerned. I mean, I think shark attacks, I think Australia, I think Egypt. But I don't think of the Canary Islands. I mean, you've been a regular over the years, Scarlett.
Yeah, no, I've been to Tenerife quite often. I've swum there. I've gone dolphin watching and thrown up a lot. it's terrifying, actually, because you think, oh, you know, people are just joking. I mean, as you say, Australia, but not the Canaries.
Yeah, she was just 30 years old. It was a horror shark attack.
Horrible story.
Yeah, I'm not sure what type of shark. I'm still trying to find out. I doubt they get great whites down there. But we must say, it was around 200 miles southwest of Gran Canaria. So she was out on this catamaran, I guess, doing some sort of day trip or something, went swimming in the water and got bitten, but still very frightening.
Apparently, Gran Canaria, which is where this incident happened, is one of the few remaining locations with a substantial population of angel sharks. I don't know if they can be dangerous, and it's also quite a common sight to see them when you're snorkelling. There's also lots of basking sharks, but they are harmless plankton feeders. But they have a large population that is there during the winter, but they're rarely seen. So we need to find out from a shark expert about these angel sharks.
Get one on.
Exactly
yes, absolutely. Producers, ring one now.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the printed papers, shall we? You choose, Ben, where you want to go.
So we've covered the exploding pages, haven't we? What about Scarlet, this one in The Sun, pages 4 and 5, the spread. The shame of UK judges who let what the Sun calls pervs go. So online paedophiles got away with hoarding more than 1 million child abuse images without serving a day in jail. That's according to a Sun investigation, of course, off the back of the Hugh Edwards...
Absolutely, who got a suspended sentence, and all these people will be getting suspended sentences. Can I say that, in general, I think attacking judges like this is not a good idea. I mean, the reason that the judges give suspended sentences is because that's the guidance, right? And I note that Kemi Badenoch, who seems very interested in making as many stories as possible, says that, you know, we should change it. Well, she did have a few years in government to change it, and if they want people who view child pervert things online to go to jail, then they should have done it. The problem, I mean, the thing is that what we have to remember is that it must be so awful for the children. I mean, that's what it's sickening. I mean, it's terrible to think of the men wanting to view it.
Do you know what the worst thing about this is? The fact that it's not tried in Crown Courts. I was appalled to hear that Hugh Edwards was actually tried at Westminster Magistrates Court.
This is not tried, was he?
No, he wasn't. But this is not a magistrate's issue. Yeah. This is Crown Court. This is abuse, and this has to be stopped in terms of licensing, and proclivity towards paedophilia has to be shut down at all costs, and also it has to be a criminal attempt.
The tragedy, I think, in all of this is actually that this is possibly the tip of the iceberg, and if anybody knew the extent to which this sort of material is being watched, our prisons would very quickly be, absolutely overrun.
Yes.
So, that's a harrowing thought, isn't it? What we do about it, when are we going to talk about it? And it ties into this story, I think, about this shocking French story where this man raped his wife and allowed up to 80 other men access to her over a period of 10 years. And he said that he'd had a difficult childhood, much like Hugh Edwards claimed with his monstrous father, and he'd had a normal life until the internet opened up possibilities for him that hadn't previously been there. Is it time to have a discussion about what the internet is doing to otherwise upstanding members of our community?
It's definitely
people like Hugh Edwards and
it's definitely part of the conversation. But we've had evil in this country. We've had evil globally all the time. Children have always been abused. Women have always been abused as well. And I can't stand the excuses. Hugh Edwards, I didn't go to Oxford. He was the highest paid talent at the BBC. It didn't stop him from rising up the ranks, did it?
I think we need to change the sentencing guidelines where we don't take mitigating factors into consideration. I remember Katie Price, completely, of course, nothing. It was drink driving or something. But
yes, nothing to do with paedophile images.
She wasn't jailed because there was concerns about who would look after her child. And whilst I massively sympathise with that, I kind of think, well, don't do the crime if you're not prepared to do the time. I don't think we should have mitigating defence.
Well, I think we have to have, in terms of sentencing, in the people are always innocent until they're proven guilty. So in terms of mitigation, they have to weigh that in and take that in towards the sentencing. But magistrates should not be sentencing paedophilia and acts of paedophilia that's been that might be convicted of. It's Crown Court. It should be sent there. It's criminal.
And can we just discuss this 300 grand a year pension that Hugh Edwards seems to be able to hold on to? Surely, if Kemi Badenoch or any of these politicians want to be outraged about anything, it is that. My goodness me, change a law, pass a law, make sure that that can be clawed back. There's no justification for that. I just can't understand why a convicted...
Just can't believe the BBC have enabled, in my view, the BBC have enabled this concept of paedophilia amongst the talent. Rolf Harris, Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards, and I think there might be more.
Yes, but I think I think you cannot blame the BBC for the fact that paedophiles go and work there. I mean...
Well, there is a... Can you agree there's a pattern?
I'll tell you...
OK, so we just...
Scarlett, they would blame the Catholic Church, as they have done with priests, so the blame has to be apportioned somewhere.
Well, I think the fact that there are 3, and there might be a lot more, and we don't know where else there are
depraved
people who behave badly.
It's also just, sorry, but it's just a tragedy because, you know, I was brought up a Catholic. I think of the priests that I've come into contact over my life, and now people see them walking down the street and think paedophile. And I think that's awful because most of them
are not
great and honourable lives, and most of the people at the BBC are hard-working journalists who believe in pursuit of the truth. That's the problem when you tarnish everyone with this brush, but I think it's a failing of the BBC not to have got a better grip of this.
If anyone at home gets a chance to read The Sun today, it's probably online as well, but it's a great investigation into the types of people who have been done in courts for child abuse images. A secondary school teacher, 26 years old, walked free from court. An NHS consultant and a dad who was caught with abhorrent images, given an 8-month suspended sentence. A former judge, a medical student, an East London councillor. These are, by anyone's standards, normal people in society.
And yet, the most vulnerable women have been targeted with criminal convictions, possibly for not paying a BBC licence fee.
Yeah,
come on.
No, it's nuts. Right, let's talk about universities, because we talk a lot on this channel about our sort of crisis with net migration, the huge numbers of people coming into this country. A tiny proportion of that come in illegally. The vast, vast majority come into our universities to prop them up. You could argue, Scarlett, because too many people were being sent to university under a Blair initiative.
Which I happen to agree with.
Remain unsustainable. But universities saying, that's fine, we can cut the numbers of foreign students coming in.
Only if we can put the domestic tuition fees up in terms or in line with inflation. This only applies to universities in England and Wales, because Northern Ireland, they pay, I think, maximum £3,000 or £5,000. And Scotland, of course, is free for anyone apart from children living in England.
So you'd put them up, the fees?
I would prefer to abolish the fees, Ben, because not a lot of children actually pay them back. Go figure. You know, there's only a very, very small percentage of those that do. However, we need our universities to be the leading global lights of education, tertiary education, getting kids on the social mobility ladder, getting them up. We can do that.
I think there's too many.
We get rid of a lot of the universities that shouldn't be universities. All the technical colleges, get back to technical colleges. Teach what you're best at. Teach children skills. We don't need to teach them underwater basket weaving. If you want to do a degree in the arts, you go to a prestigious Russell Group university, you read English, you then develop your love for the language and indeed literature. That's absolutely fine. And drama, go to a specialist drama school. You don't need to do that at university. Anyway, we need to address the fact that the universities are underfunded. We need to address the fact that a lot of our kids are tutored too far, too much, and they try to attain these A-star grades. These, I'll tell you, GCSEs are only a number. A-levels is only a letter. Don't worry about it. And yet, all the overseas children are coming in paying 4 times more in tertiary educational fees than domestic students. As a business model, who are you going to take? You're going to take the overseas child that was willing to pay £40,000 a year, and they let them in with attainment marks much less than domestic children, and I think we're failing our kids.
Scarlett, do you not think there's just too many kids going to university, too many silly courses? We need more tradies.
No, I think actually there are very few silly courses, right? As soon as you start naming the course there aren't. I think that if you can only do an arts degree at a Russell University, we will go back to when I went to university, and actually the tiny percentage of people went, and guess what? They tended to be middle class. It was very difficult for children. So actually, what a lot of these universities places like the University of Sunderland, they basically take a lot of local children.
Okay.
I think it's really, really important.
And they eat them up, put them into debt, and don't do anything with them.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you both. We're just running out of time, unfortunately. It's going to be balmy this week, apparently. Annie Shuttleworth has your forecast.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of Western Wales, southwest England and parts of Western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Wednesday morning. In Surrey, the M23 South, the lane is now open on the exit slip road following that broken down car at junction 9 for Gatwick Airport. In Worcestershire, the northbound M5 moving better now following the earlier broken down vehicle there, junction 5 at Droitwich to junction 4A for the M42 interchange. And in Essex, the London bound A12 slow with the lane closed due to a broken down vehicle from junction 25 at Marks Tay. In Suffolk, westbound A14 reports of an obstruction on the road going to affect you near to junction 43 for the Bury Central interchange, and in East Herrington in Tyne and Wear, the A19 North, one lane closed there due to a broken down vehicle just after the 690 Durham Road for the Herrington interchange, and in London in Wandsworth, Merton Road at the minute, emergency water mains work repairs near Granville Road going to affect you too. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Very good morning to you. A tinderbox in the Middle East as Lebanon accuses Israel of orchestrating that shocking attack on pages belonging to the Hezbollah militia group.
At least 9 are confirmed dead and thousands injured, 200 critically, in the biggest security breach since fighting began last October.
As Israel is suspected of planting 5,000 explosives, the UK and the US are left scrambling to work out what's happened and whether this could trigger an escalation.
Inflation figures are dropping any minute now in a major test of how the Labour government is tackling the rising cost of living.
Cabinet ministers raise eyebrows as it comes to light they accepted more than £9,000 worth of tickets to Taylor Swift concerts over the summer.
The Princess of Wales delights the nation as she marks her return to royal work with an early years private meeting inside Windsor Castle.
And as today marks 10 years since the Scottish independence referendum, we find out whether there's still appetite for yet another vote.
The inquiry continues into how nurse killer Lucy Letby got away with her crimes in broad daylight as the families search for answers.
And as one London borough threatens to ban e-bikes, we're asking whether it's time to axe them altogether.
And in the sport this morning, good wins for Aston Villa and Liverpool in the Champions League. In the Carabao Cup, Manchester United scored 7, while Fulham beat Preston, but it took 35 penalties to do it. And in Emma Raducanu news, Emma Raducanu wins a match at the Korean Open.
Good morning. Another foggy start for some of us. Most of the cloud, though, should burn away by lunchtime, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's 7:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
We'll be turning our attention to the Middle East in just a moment, but I want to bring you those figures that have just been released by the Office for National Statistics. That inflation remains unchanged at 2.2%. It's in line with what economists were predicting and means that there's no change from July's figures. You could call that flatline, or you could say steady as she goes. We'll have full analysis on that in just a moment.
OK, over to the Middle East now. In Lebanon, at least 9 people have been killed, including a 10-year-old girl, and nearly 3,000 injured, including members of the Hezbollah terrorist group after that pager attack.
Well, this incident happened when pagers exploded in what's being described as the biggest security breach since fighting broke out with Israel almost a year ago.
Overnight, a senior Lebanese source said 5,000 devices had been tampered with by Israel's spy service, Mossad.
Well, let's get the thoughts this morning of our home and security editor, Mark White. Good morning to you, Mark. Look, this is a worrying development. A lot of people will be extremely concerned about this being a significant escalation, with Hezbollah vowing to strike back. Israel are staying resolutely silent on the matter, but the Foreign Office here urging for calm heads and hoping to avoid any escalation.
Well, it is the policy of the Israeli government never to confirm nor deny these operations involving their security services. But, you know, in almost 4 decades of journalism, I've never known a story like this. It was an audacious attack that clearly required a very sophisticated level of planning and coordination. And what we understand now from multiple security sources is that high explosives at some point in the production line were inserted into these pagers, and they were triggered to respond to a certain pager message. Now, it's also been reported that the Israeli War Cabinet had this in thousands of pagers belonging to senior members of the Hezbollah terrorist group, that they weren't planning to detonate them just quite yet. It was at the stage, if the situation in Lebanon escalated to such a point that they felt a full offensive was required, then this would be the first hit the first wave in that operation of dismantling the communications and, of course, taking hundreds, if not thousands, of fighters away from the front line in doing that. But it seems that at least one, possibly two, members of Hezbollah had become suspicious about these pagers, and Israeli secret services moved very quickly. They got the approval, we understand, yesterday from the War Cabinet to bring this forward. And rather than have them discovered and taken out of service, they detonated them. In doing that, of course, it has the potential, well, of course it is, it's a very significant escalation, and all eyes really on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and other areas across the Middle East, as well as Iran, its backers, to see what the next move is. Remember, of course, we were expecting for some time a huge retaliation from Iran to the killing of the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on the 31st of July. The sides in that seem to have been talked down. Any missile strike from Iran in retaliation appears to have been put on hold for the time being, but I think now it is inevitable there will be a huge response to what unfolded on the streets of Beirut and other locations in southern Lebanon, and we should say in Syria as well yesterday.
Yeah, Mark, from a purely military perspective, an impressive operation. I've never heard or seen anything like this before. So Mossad, if it was them behind it, I guess props to them for such an advanced operation. But on the flip side, Israel is being accused of indiscriminately setting these pages off. A 10-year-old girl has died as collateral damage. Have they got questions to answer on that front? Are they being indiscriminate in their attacks on in Gaza and now, Beirut?
Well, look, there's no doubt some civilians have been caught up in this, as they often are in any war situation. But the vast majority of people, make no mistake about this, the vast majority of people killed and injured in these attacks were Hezbollah terrorists who were wearing these pagers on behalf of this terrorist group. Anyone else caught up in this clearly accidentally going to look at what might have bleeped on a family member's bleeper, or being very close indeed. And they'd have to be close because these were very sophisticated in the way they operated. Yes, they caused a lot of damage up close to the wearer of these devices. A senior security source told me last night that what appears to have happened is that the bleepers, the pagers, were designed to set off a message, a bleep, and that then these Hezbollah terrorists, in answering that bleep, would in most cases take the bleeper out of their pocket to bring up to their face to have a look at the message, and they exploded. So you've got lots of injuries where people have suffered severe facial trauma. Many have been blinded, hands have been blown off. Those that didn't do that, that either didn't hear it or hadn't yet picked it up off their pocket or their belt, suffered injuries to their lower extremities. So very, very significant, and as you say, a very sophisticated operation to pull off.
Mark White, thanks for analysis. We appreciate it. More from you a little bit later on. Let's return to our breaking inflation figures this morning. We've heard in the last few minutes that inflation remained unchanged at 2.2% in August, just above the government's own target of 2%.
We're joined now by financial expert Dr. Roger Guillois for analysis on this. Good morning, Roger. Is this a win for the Labour government?
Good morning. No, I don't really think it is, and I don't really see them doing anything to bring down the cost of living crisis. I mean, inflation is low at 2.2%, but that is as a result of energy costs falling and food prices falling, and the Labour government's done nothing to cause that. A lot of economists are predicting it's going to fall even further in the months to come, Ben, below 2%, and then rise to about, some say 2.5%, 2.75% over the next 2 years. Now, it doesn't really feel to me, I don't know about you, but it doesn't feel the cost of living crisis has eased at all. And looking at Labour's plans for what we see about taxation and spending, I mean, with David Lammy now announcing that climate change is the #1 priority of the United Kingdom Foreign Office, even before Vladimir Putin, they are going to be spending an awful lot of money. And my personal prediction is that those economists are wrong, and I see inflation rising possibly to 4 or 5% in the next year. I'm going to make that prediction.
Right, OK. And possibly, you know, who knows if feeding into all of that will be these public sector pay rises that they've been awarding, because, of course, the previous administration kept saying we can't do it because it would be inflationary. We've heard in the last few moments from Grant Fitzner. He's the chief economist at the Office for National Statistics, and he's saying that the main movements came from airfares, in particular to European destinations, which showed a large monthly rise following a fall this time last year. But he said that was offset by lower prices at the petrol pump, as well as falling costs at restaurants and hotels. This is the sort of things that people will be very aware of, because this is people's day-to-day interactions with making payments, and still 2.2% more expensive than they were this time last year. What could all of this mean for interest rates for the Bank of England, for things like mortgages?
I was going to come on to that. It's a very good point. First of all, it's in line, Isabel, with most other European countries. Secondly, I think that Labour is committed to not let mortgage rates rise any further and possibly even fall. But I don't know how they're going to do that. Like so many things they're talking about, they sound wonderful, but they don't show us how the execution is actually going to happen. And it's really hard to envisage it, given what they say one thing and they're doing another. The Bank of England, with Andrew Bailey and his crew, are not lowering interest rates as they should be doing, because the inflation that we have and the inflation that we're going to have is not caused by consumers spending. You know that people are not out overspending. That's when you raise interest rates. Every interest rate rise that the bank has made is simply passed on to consumers, which fuels the cost of living crisis. So it's a vicious circle. And I don't see Bailey, given that he's so stubborn in his views, I call him the Bailey-osaurus. He and his thick-skinned colleagues won't listen to anybody else. I see him leaving rates pretty much where they are, and possibly, if the inflation starts to move back up, as I'm suggesting, even raising interest rates more, which will really cripple more British businesses and hit many, 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 many tens of millions of British homes.
OK, Dr. Roger Gilwell, thank you. Who would have thought you print a third of your entire money supply in just 12 months that it would cause inflation? The Bank of England, the Federal Reserve at the time during COVID, said it won't cause inflation. Then it was, inflation's only, transitory. And, now we are where we are.
Yeah.
Very well put. You get a prize in economics.
Thank you. I'll send you that £5 in the post. Thank you, Roger.
Right, let's turn to British politics. I mean, I suppose you could argue we were on British politics. The spotlight remaining on Labour and the controversy surrounding donations and these freebies that now even cabinet members have been enjoying.
Yeah, they've been filling their boots, haven't they? Health Secretary Wes Streeting and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson are among those who accepted free tickets to see Taylor Swift this summer. And in total, cabinet ministers, get this, took a whopping £9,000 worth of tickets to see Taylor Swift, the US superstar, at Wembley. And it's also emerged the Prime Minister's wife, Lady Victoria Starmer, accepted 2 free tickets worth hundreds of pounds to see not just one, but 2 concerts.
Well, let's get the thoughts this morning of Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, who joins us in the studio. And Catherine, it's unbelievable. Here we are, 74 days after the election, and the left-leaning newspaper, The Guardian, doing a double-page spread about the Prime Minister's penchant for freebies.
Isn't it fascinating? Isn't it fascinating? Because the right-wing papers, of course, are going to go big on this. But The Guardian, and yes, they have done a deep dive, basically, into what our new Prime Minister has accepted. They reckon it's over 100,000. They say that that is more freebies than any party leader in recent times. They've gone through Theresa May, Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Corbyn, all the rest of them. Before 2010, the rules have changed, so it's difficult to compare. But Yes, he certainly does have a taste for tickets and other things. We know 18,500 for Arsenal tickets. Now, I was in Rome with him the other day. The journalists were asking him again and again about the money from Lord Ali for his wife's clothes, and he was saying, I follow the rules, it's very important to stick to the rules. But his argument with the tickets was, you know, look, I love Arsenal, I'm Prime Minister. If I don't, you know, go in the hospitality area, basically I can't go, and I think that that's pretty much a bridge too far to expect me to give that up.
Well, he could pay for it himself instead of taking freebies.
He could. And one of the other details amongst many in The Guardian was Lord Ali, this very big Tory donor, who was given a temporary Downing Street pass for a while. We still haven't got to the bottom of why. So he donated 12,000 for clothing, 20,000 for accommodation, largely during the election campaign. And for glasses, we knew that he'd paid for the Prime Minister's spectacles. They say £2,500 for glasses.
Yeah, I mean...
Quite a lot for glasses. I mean, these were like £7. But
yeah,
obviously,
exactly.
I'm not, you know, it is important that the Prime Minister looks good, and lots of people saying, you know, in America. But I would say in America, the First Lady does not have a budget for clothing, and they have an official role, whereas Lady Starmer does not have an official role in the same way.
But it's not even about whether you should or shouldn't have, you know, donors' money spent on these things. It's the fact he campaigned for years against it, and it's now the hypocrisy of it. And you've been globe-trotting around following him, Washington and then Rome the last few days. He's not repentant. In fact, he's almost defensive about it. He doesn't feel as though he's doing anything wrong. And on your say this morning, the word that keeps popping up is arrogance. Is Keir Starmer being a bit tone-deaf or arrogant about this? He's entitled to these freebies, so why shouldn't he?
It seemed to me, and we asked the same question many ways in the huddle before we got back on the plane from Rome, that his view is, these are the rules, I followed the rules. OK, actually, the donations for his wife's clothes came in late, but, you know, he's saying that was a technicality. But these are the rules. I followed the rules. That's important. Therefore, there is nothing to see here. And he is right. Rules have not been broken. All right, there was a late declaration. I think most people would forgive that. But the point is, it's the optics, isn't it? At a time when we know this budget is coming, there's going to be a lot of pain for a lot of people. 10 million pensioners are losing their winter fuel allowance. There are hard times for people, and I think it's politically a bit tone-deaf, to put it mildly, that they're seen to be accepting all these things.
OK, Catherine Forster, thank you. Yeah, £2 million house Keir Starmer lives in, a 200k a year salary, all the freebies in the world, Arsenal tickets. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan as well. Give me some free tickets, will you? But at the same time, as Catherine said, you're then swiping a couple £100, which is a lot of money to these pensioners, from their winter fuel allowances. It's like, come on, even just politically, the naivety of the optics. I mean, again, I've asked Catherine previously, does Sir Keir Starmer actually care about the scandal that's brewing around this? I don't think he does. Some of you at home don't think he does. Others say, as Catherine said, he doesn't think he's done anything wrong, which he hasn't, technically.
Let us know your thoughts this morning. With the time at 7:18, though, we're going to take a look at some of the other news stories breaking this morning. And from today, junior doctors working across the NHS will be referred to as resident doctors. The British Medical Association fought for the name change, which health ministers say will help to reset that relationship between doctors and the government. It comes just days after they accepted the government's offer of 22% pay rises, ending an 18-month dispute.
And did you see it last night? Stargazers were treated to a rare partial eclipse of a supermoon. Eclipses rarely coincide with supermoons, making this an even more unusual event. And it's the second supermoon this year, and it's being called the harvest moon. If you missed it, you're still in luck, because experts hope it will last until Thursday morning, tomorrow morning.
The Princess of Wales has returned to work and resumed royal engagements following the conclusion of her chemotherapy. The Princess held a meeting on Tuesday privately inside Windsor Castle about her early childhood project. Just last week, she released a video message revealing that she's finished her treatment and is in recovery. Let's take a look again at what she had to say.
As the summer comes to an end, I cannot tell you what a relief it is to have finally completed my chemotherapy treatment. Doing what I can to stay cancer-free is now my focus. Although I have finished chemotherapy, my path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
Fantastic to hear that she's getting back to work, and long may that continue. I hope that her treatment, or her recovery at least, is swift, and we get to see more of her.
Harry's back on Monday. I wonder whether he will pay her a visit, and maybe his brother and his father.
There's a bit of a thawing there, isn't there? There was a birthday wish sent to Harry for his 40th on Sunday. Who knows? Maybe they will have a reunion at some point. In the meantime, as we're talking about thawing, let's get a look at the forecast. Annie Shuttleworth with the latest.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of western Wales, southwest England and parts of western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And if you're getting a bit sick of the cold weather, which will undoubtedly come within a month or two, you could get yourself off on... Sorry, I'm sinking in my chair. You could get yourself off on holiday, maybe somewhere nice, maybe not Gran Canaria, where there's been that fatal shark attack. But our Great British Giveaway kicks off now. You can enter, and it's the equivalent, the prize, of having an extra £3 a month in your bank account each month for the next year.
Yeah, you do the maths, that adds up to £36,000 in tax-free cash. Here's how it could be yours.
This is good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, as we've been discussing this morning, Prince Harry is on his way back. He'll be back next week, but it won't be for very long, and it looks like he's flying solo. More on that after this.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain.
only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions.
That raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return.
And a few surprises along the way.
Might be cold in this studio.
That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, some good royal news. The Princess of Wales is back to work.
Yes, Her Royal Highness held an early years meeting behind closed doors at Windsor Castle yesterday afternoon. We don't have any pictures of this, of course, but it was the first meeting that has been noted in the court circular since the Princess began her cancer treatment earlier this year.
And the Prince of Wales has been doing his bit too after carrying out a private visit to 22 Special Air Service Regiment, also known as the SAS, of course, based in Hereford, alongside Kate's return to work. So while Prince Harry's jetting back to the UK on Monday, I think, next week, to attend the National 2024 Well Child Awards, the Duke has been a patron for the charity for 16 years, raising awareness and financial contributions to ensure the charity can pursue its mission to improve the quality of life for seriously ill children and their families.
Well, let's discuss all of this with former BBC Royal correspondent Michael Cole. Good morning to you, Michael. Gosh, whenever I hear about the Well Child Awards and Prince Harry, I always think about the death of the late Queen, because, of course, Harry and Meghan were over in the UK to attend this very event when disaster struck. But let's focus on the good news before we delve into Harry, shall we? And the news that Princess of Wales, albeit behind closed doors, is back chairing meetings, doing what she cares so very deeply about, which is early years.
Good morning, Isabel. Good morning, Ben. Good news indeed. A slow, but we hope steady and sure recovery. It was last December that the Princess did anything like this. As you say, it was a low-key meeting with members of her own staff and a representative from the Centre for Early Learning, Early Childhood. She is committed. She's vowed to support this charity throughout her life. It's her project in many ways, and she's doing that. So another good sign, she probably will be at the Remembrance Sunday ceremonial at the Cenotaph in November, and we can look out for hearing about and perhaps even seeing other small events, because the palace said that it would be a slow return, light duties, if you will, but she's back, and after that wonderful video last week, it's something to be applauded, and she goes with our best wishes, of course.
And the Princess is getting back into the swing of things. Prince William, of course, has been working quite courageously whilst his father and wife have been struggling with their health woes. He was at the SAS base yesterday in Hereford. What was he doing there?
Well, we won't know very much because they never, ever talk about what they do. The SAS keep their secrets very close to their battle dress. But he went down there. He's been before. Obviously, they'll be briefing him about recent work they've been doing and their preparations for doing, well, usually the unexpected. The SAS never know when they're going to be called upon to do the impossible tasks that they carry out with such vigour and courage.
Well, let's talk about Prince Harry then. He is due in the country. He's flying solo. He has done pretty much in the last few years, ever since, I think it was at the funeral of the late Queen, was the last time Meghan was here. A lot of us very happy about that because Meghan has said so many terrible things about the royal family. We don't need to go into all of that. But, you know, is there a thawing in relations? It was Harry's birthday on Sunday. The Prince and Princess of Wales and the royal family wished him a very public happy birthday. Could there be some sort of meeting between the brothers, do you think?
I think there are two chances of that, Isabel, slim and none, to be honest with you. If it's a thaw, it's an extremely slow thaw. Wellness, Well Child is a project that he's been involved with for 16 years. He's been a patron. He is really committed to it. He loves it, and they love him. He always gets a great reception when he comes over for the awards. In fact, in 2019, at the awards ceremony, just after their son, Prince Archie, had been born, he broke down, he really broke down emotionally at the struggles of children with very, very trying and difficult conditions, and how resilient they are and how wonderful the people are who support them. So he'll be over for that. Question is, where will he stay? Last time he was here, he stayed at a hotel, even though he was offered the freedom of Buckingham Palace if he wished to stay there. His king said, you know, stay at my place, old boy. But he didn't. And I think the chances of him meeting again with the Prince and Princess of Wales are, I would say, virtually non-existent.
And Michael, not sure if you know the details on this, but Vanity Fair have a story out overnight saying, and in actual fact, I'm not sure how much of a scoop it is, because it's basically saying that the King Charles, called Harry on his 40th birthday. I mean, father calls son on his birthday, who would have guessed? But any idea if that's true?
Well, it was said at the time that he would call, 8 hours difference between California and here, and that the King would call him in our afternoon, their early morning around breakfast time. It was never confirmed. Normally, I think, on these occasions, Buckingham Palace would confirm if there had been a video call, rather like one we're having now. But of course, the King would have been rather wary of that, because the last time there was a video call and the children, Archie and Lilibet, were involved in it, that was leaked the next day, presumably by Prince Harry's PR people, that there had been this meeting by whatever means, Scoop, Zoom or Skype, whatever it was. So if it did happen, it would be interesting, and it would show a renewal of trust, or perhaps new conditions for when these calls are made.
Just finally, there's been a serialisation of James Middleton's book in a number of the papers, talking about his dog largely, and how his dog really saved him from suicide. And I've been following it with interest because, unlike Harry, and his book Spare, he hasn't been critical of the royal family, but he has lifted the lid in a way that Harry did as well into a lot of what's gone on behind closed doors, particularly inside the Middleton family, but also anecdotes about experiences meeting the Queen and the current King now as well. What do you make of his book and the comments that he's been making?
Well, as you say, it is mainly about the dog and the struggles he's had. And actually, it does tell you how much, what a great deal of trouble, I mean, real problems the Middletons, Michael and Carol, have had. Of course, their two daughters have been brilliantly launched onto the world, but their son has struggled, and he's been very candid in this book of his. But he hasn't said anything that's indiscreet. He hasn't revealed any damaging secrets about anything, or he's been very sparing with his comments. Obviously, he's very proud of his sisters, and I'm sure they're very proud of him. He's had a struggle, and I think he now lives in France most of the time with his charming and rather beautiful wife. And he's obviously more settled, and one wishes him well in that. So, yes, it will. I'm sure it will sell to certain audiences. Anything that's got a dog in it tends to sell these days, and on it goes.
Yeah. OK, Michael Colt, thank you very much for that. Appreciate you being with us so early. Yeah, great news. Very pleased for the Princess of Wales and, of course, the Wales's family.
Yeah. I mean, we have missed her, really, not just, us journalists, because she sells and she's popular and she looks fantastic, but just, the British population have missed her. She's been such an asset to the royal family. I think it's really made us all realise what a big part of it she is.
Yeah, I've always controversially said I think the King should have abdicated and skipped and let William and Kate
I have to say,
take the throne.
I agree. It happens a lot in other royal families across Europe. Probably a bit harsh on Charles. Waiting his whole life, the longest heir in waiting in history, I think. But, do we want then William to take over the crown when he's in his 70s as well? Is the monarchy always going to be geriatric?
I think when you have the threat, and I argue it is a threat from Harry and Meghan's behaviour, particularly Meghan. I think Harry's just been a bit of a silly boy and gone along with it. But when you have that threat to the monarchy, I think you need to modernise the monarchy and make plans to contest that. And I think William and Kate being rushed into that position would have been a good thing.
Although I should say, I think King Charles is doing a fabulous job. So
I feel sorry for the King as well, having waited so long, taken the throne, and then he gets hit with his
But he's done a great job. He is doing a great job. Right, another person who's doing a great job for us this morning, Coity. As always, he'll have all your sport after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for this Wednesday morning. In Essex, the southbound M11 slow due to an earlier accident just after junction 7 at Harlow. In Hampshire, the southbound M3 one lane closed due to a lorry having its tyre changed, junction 4A at Farnborough to junction 5 at Hook. And in the West Midlands, the southbound M6, we've got delays at the minute just before junction 8 for the M5 coming from the M54. There's about half an hour's worth of delays on that section there past Hilton Park services. And in Essex, the southbound A12, this is the London bound A12 there, currently slow due to an earlier broken down vehicle. That's going to affect your junction 25 for Marks Tay. In Suffolk, the A14 westbound, the obstruction's been moved junction 43 for Bury Central interchange. That was obviously causing some issues. And in Tyne and Wear, East Harrington, the A19 near the 690 for the Durham Road junction is now clear as well this morning from what we can see. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We were just giggling away during the break because somebody's emailed in and we're just going to pat ourselves on the back. They said, "Dear Ben and Isabel, you're a great team, professional, good-looking and polished."
Thanks, Mum. Is that your mum again?
No, it's not my mum. It's someone called Age. I'm not sure if that's your name, but Age, thank you very much. That's our ego boost for the day. Thank you.
We'll lower the tone now and introduce Paul Coit.
Sorry, I'm just going to get over this nausea. Let's have a look, shall we, and see what's going on.
Patting ourselves on the
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Aren't you two marvellous?
Aren't we great?
Absolutely marvellous. Champions League last night. Young boys played Aston Villa. It was on the plastic pitch.
How old were they?
Aston Villa, they were young. They were young. But Aston Villa was so much better.
What was the pitch?
It was like men against boys, quite frankly. It was
Stadium.
yesterday.
Yeah, it was my joke. Sorry, but yeah, what was the stadium called?
The stadium.
Where were they playing?
I can do it.
You have to say
I
it.
can say it.
You don't have to.
It's.
Oh no.
No, don't do it. Google it at home. if you want to know what we're talking about.
You know what? I'm going to start a donations page. So if I raise £1,000, I will say it.
And who are we donating this to?
Oh, it's me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, purely. Yeah, go to me. Sorry, young boys beaten by Aston Villa 3-0, 41-year absence from the European competition, and Aston Villa were very good, but young boys. Yeah, it's not too much of a testing start. Liverpool, they did very well playing at the San Siro in Italy, played against AC Milan. They were 1-0 down, but it was a very professional job. There's Arne Slot there celebrating his 46th birthday. And they were excellent last night, so very good for them. Bayern Munich 9, Dynamo Zagreb 1. Oof. Harry Kane breaks the record for the most goals scored by an English player. It's penalties are goals.
Yes, you're learning from me, Isabel.
Yeah.
You are. You're on
I'm
his
like
side.
a sponge.
Sport-wise, anyway.
Just picking up the sport.
Learn from me, not from him when it comes to this. They all count. He scored 4 goals.
Basically, Isabel, anything to do with Spurs or Harry Kane, we diminish.
Oh. Well, I like Harry Kane. You've taught me that he's a good man. So, anyway, moving on.
Tottenham Hotspur play tonight, by the way.
Oh, right.
Playing Coventry in the Carabao Cup. Now,
they should win.
Well, this is the thing. They should do. You would think that, but a lot of Spurs fans are worried. It was in the Carabao Cup last year when they played away at Fulham, and then there was a lesser team that was put out. The important thing for Spurs and for Spurs fans is about silverware, and that's what every club and every supporter wants to win. Now, Ange Postecoglou, the manager, has said that silverware is something he always wins. Now, I don't know whether you make it a rod for your own back when you say this, but always in his second season, it doesn't matter where he's been, he's always won a trophy. So you would kind of think, is that the right thing to say? You're going to cause yourself trouble? And then people picked up on it and asked Ange about it yesterday.
But it's... do you really think it's me sort of being boasting? Or like, how am I supposed to answer something that's true? Is it to say, well, actually, no, it wasn't that important. They were easy competitions and they don't mean anything. And I mean, if you've achieved something, aren't you supposed to say, yes, I have, and that's what I hope to do again? I'm not really sure, like, why people misconstrue it as me trying to boast about something. I've answered a question.
I do as well. The thing is, and yes, I know he's Spurs, but that aside, often in these situations, someone will ask a question and say, what do you think about that? They'll agree, and they'll say, Ange says, this press, I tell you what, who'd work in the press?
I think that was a perfect response, head in hands. You know, you just think, for goodness sake,
what am I supposed to do?
Booby traps.
What am I supposed to do? But anyway, it's Coventry, so they play them in the Carabao Cup, Brighton versus Wolves tonight.
Great.
You want tennis?
I quite like him. Yeah, tennis quickly. Emma Raducanu, she won her first round in
She sounds surprised. It's only the first round.
Emma Raducanu wins a game of tennis. How about that?
Emma bashing.
It was the big one. It was the Korean Open. She's playing in Korea. But the thing is, 50 unforced errors. Let's just have a look at Emma. We always like to see Emma play. So it was the first round of the Korea Open against American Peyton Stearns, the powerhouse of Peyton Stearns. She won both tie-breaks, 7-6, 7-6. 50 unforced errors.
From Emma, 50 errors.
From Emma. And but at least she came through. But we always like to see her play.
She looks really gassed.
Yeah. She's had a couple of sets. There we are. In Seoul last night.
What does that mean, really gassed? Does that mean exhausted?
Tired, yeah. Sorry.
No, I thought that might mean excited.
Jumping jack flash, it's a gas. That's what it is.
Gassed.
There we go.
Just exhausted. It looks quite hot there, doesn't it? So.
Yeah.
You're
underwhelmed, aren't you, with Emma there?
I wish Emma well.
Slightly underwhelmed.
I've said before, and I've got in trouble for saying it, but I just wish she would have focused more on the tennis after her US Open win and not gone and done photo shoots and brand deals.
Well, maybe it was wise of her to do that because, to be honest, she might not ever make it to the top again.
Pocket
and
the money.
She's made for life.
Someone's coming to you, Ben, and saying, listen, you know, we've got billions of pounds. Would you just do these photographs?
I would have had more faith, hopefully.
I've seen you modelling the GB News merch. I've seen you doing that. It's the same as Emma.
You say you'll never be in that position. Don't fib. Your son's a very good tennis player. He's only 4.
My son is right. So
watch this space.
Emma's obviously very talented, and I just wish we would have known how good she would have been if she didn't do all the brand stuff and the money stuff.
I don't know whether they'd make that much difference.
I'm being kind to her.
Yeah,
not that she cares about me, of course.
Know.
She doesn't know the headline.
She speaks very well of
you. Yeah, right.
Thank you, Coity. We speak very well of you. We'll have more from you around an hour's time. Yes, we do.
Oh, bless you.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
I don't.
Shortly. Right, Claire will do. Stop it. Claire will do. Scarlett Maguire back with the papers in a sec.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Good morning, everybody. I honestly don't think Gen Z are as lazy as we've been made out. I was on GB News a couple of months ago talking about a report which suggested that they were very lazy, very work shy, and I honestly don't think that's the case. I respect my elders, so I'm certainly not going to sit here and blame them for the slow return to many offices across the country. But I am actually 20. I've run businesses since I was 15 and 16, since I dropped out of school, and I have always been pro-office, right? So I fit right into that Generation Z category, and I think the office environment is fantastic, not just professionally but socially for young people, especially kind of after COVID, and it halted a lot of their social plans or people going to university, etc. I think getting people into the office, being surrounded by the more senior people, the people with more experience, which is what we're talking about, older people, is actually incredibly positive. But I think Generation Z get a lot of stick in the media, and I'm often sat here debating this about them being called lazy. I guess I think probably what's different is technology is advanced, so people's jobs are a lot quicker, and Generation Z have obviously grew up with that technology, therefore in a position to do jobs quicker. And I guess that's kind of where that kind of narrative has come from, because Gen Z do really kind of go with the whole work smarter, not harder kind of mentality, which is often met with a little bit of stick.
I'm not knocking the young generation at all. I mean, I'm just saying it's by experience. Undoubtedly, they're not as hard-working as the more experienced worker, but I'm certainly not knocking them on that basis. If they had the opportunity, I'm sure there'd be more and more would want to get into the workplace. But unfortunately, I think this COVID has changed the world, and it's made younger people more lazy than older people. Older people just can't wait shouldn't say that, can't wait to get out of the house to get to work.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the press today with our esteemed panel. The Times newspaper says, it leads with the exploding pages, wreaking havoc among Hezbollah. Mossad, of course, being accused of being behind the plot this morning.
The Mirror has an exclusive with the young man said to be at the centre of the Hugh Edwards scandal.
And the Daily Express warns that 1.7 million people won't heat their homes this winter to save money, not just people, pensioners, I suspect, as well.
And finally, The Guardian is leading with the trial in southern France against a man who allegedly, well, he's actually admitted it now, drugged his wife so he and strangers could sexually abuse her. Unbelievable story, that one. We're joined by Scarlett Maguire, Claire Muldoon, taking us through the papers this morning. Scarlett, you want to start with that Mirror story about 1.7 million people to go without heating this winter?
Actually, it's 1.7 million households.
I
mean, which is more, and about a quarter of them are pensioners, because what we have to remember, there's an awful lot of people who are not pensioners, you know, who have terrible, who do not earn enough money to heat their houses with children, and so because apparently the bills are just going to go, they're going to go through the roof this winter, and there are some people are saying they're not going to turn the heating on until December, and others are hoping, well, they're preparing to not do it at all. And I mean, every year we run into this, and I know we have the winter fuel thing, which is cutting money from pensioners a lot, frankly. I mean, there are going to be terrible stories, but an awful lot of pensioners actually are much better off than poor families.
Millionaire pensioner households, though, and there's going to be 10 million that are going to see the back of these winter fuel payments.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, look, a lot of the pensioners. I mean, the reason they did it. I mean, I don't think they looked at it properly, but because there are an awful lot of very well-off pensioners who are not going to have a problem. I mean, so 3/4 of this 1.7 million people, I mean, are single people or people with kids.
The fact that it's any person at all, I find just absolutely disgusting. This is not Victorian Britain. This is not, we cannot lay the blame at the foot of the Tories of 14 years of rule. Labour have come in now and they've actually made it worse. They really have. And you talk about the bills going through the roof. Well, I hope they don't, because the roofs need to stay on so that they can actually have some blooming heat. It's just ridiculous.
And I'm sorry to go back to this story about the gifts and the freebies, but that's why it makes it so much worse and so much more intolerable for people.
Horrific,
going to Arsenal games in the hospitality box.
Taylor Swift's
swigging
concert.
champagne, munching prawn sandwiches, whilst, you know, people are freezing to death in this country.
The archetypal champagne socialists. And I'll tell you something else, that Ed Miliband has been coming on, rapping on about net zero. When he was in government with Gordon Brown, they were promoting people to buy diesel cars.
Which was a mistake, but it was a mistake.
How many more mistakes?
Hold on, just a minute, hold on. It was a mistake because VW said diesel was better, right? And it was found that they'd actually fixed it. And it was a great scandal. So, yes, it was a mistake, but it was a mistake because VW...
How many other mistakes? We can put the blame at the private company, Scarlett.
Just a minute, you named something, Claire, and I explained that it was a mistake. That VW said diesel is better.
Scarlett, the government still did what they did, and now they're doing what they're doing. How many more mistakes are we going to find? Either will it be retrospectively a mistake, still a mistake?
I just want to crowbar in another story before we're out of time. This is interesting. Instagram are introducing Teen Instagram. It's going to have a number of settings which include switching off after 60 minutes. It will not allow any notifications between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And it will severely restrict the content that they are able to access.
Right.
Welcome news.
In theory, in print, in the eye today, wonderful news, welcome it. The reality is kids will override it. They will put fake dates of birth in. I welcome the fact that Instagram, for one app, will be shut down for these teen accounts between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. What about the rest of them? And Nick Clegg sitting there as head of Meta saying, oh, this is great, this is a start. Well, I'm sorry, Nick. Come on, wake up, smell the coffee. Yes, I'm glad at least something is out there. At least something is actually trying to control the internet for children, for our most prized, possessions of the world that we need to nurture, we need to build in virtue, we need to build the character. We can't do that with the terrible effect of Meta, the terrible effects of mobile phones, the terrible effects of Wi-Fi that has on their brains. But let's just see. Kids are clever, though, and they will override it.
They're always one step ahead.
Yeah, they are.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time for your response to that, but apologies, you'll be back in the next hour. Yeah, I think we need an Instagram ban for adults as well. But anyway, let's get
I'm not even on it.
your weather forecast with Annie Shuttleworth.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of western Wales, southwest England and parts of western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for your Wednesday morning. The northbound M1 in Leicestershire, all traffic temporarily being held due to an accident. Junction 20 for Lutterworth to junction 21 for Leicester. The southbound M11 in Essex, traffic moving a lot better now following the earlier accident just after junction 7 at Harlow. In Hampshire, the southbound M3, one lane closed due to a lorry having its tyre changed. Junction 4A at Farnborough to junction 5 at Hook. And also as well at the minute in Caerphilly on the A467. That's closed at the minute due to an accident near to Meadowland Drive, near to the Morrison's roundabout there, and also in Fife the A911 at the moment in both directions, partially blocked due to an accident near to Milton Bray at the moment, and the Markinch turn-off that will affect you, and also as well at the moment the A12 southbound in Essex, partially blocked at the minute due to an obstruction near to Rivenhall this morning. That will affect you there. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You can be good luck.
Good morning. A tinderbox in the Middle East as Lebanon accuses Israel of orchestrating a shocking attack on pages belonging to the Lebanese Hezbollah militia group.
At least 9 are confirmed dead and thousands injured as the United Nations issues a fresh demand for Israel to end its presence in Palestine.
Well, Israel is suspected of planting 5,000 explosives. The Foreign Office here says it's closely monitoring developments and has called for de-escalation.
Elsewhere, breaking in the last hour or so, inflation figures remain at 2.2%. That's above the government's own target of 2%.
Cabinet ministers are raising eyebrows as it comes to light that they've accepted more than £9,000 worth of tickets to Taylor Swift concerts over the summer.
And some good royal news. The Princess of Wales delights the nation as she marks her return to royal work with an early years meeting in Windsor Castle.
And as today marks 10 years since the Scottish independence referendum, we find out whether there's still any appetite for another vote.
The inquiry continues into how nurse killer Lucy Letby got away with her crimes in broad daylight as the families continue to search for answers.
And as one London borough threatens to ban e-bikes, we're asking this morning whether it's time to axe them altogether.
And in sport this morning, Aston Villa and Liverpool score 3 each, both winning away in the first Champions League games of the season. In the Carabao Cup, Manchester United score 7, while Preston and Fulham go through 35 penalties to decide a winner. And it's John McEnroe versus Bjorn Borg again, this time in Berlin.
Good morning. Another foggy start for some of us. Most of the cloud, though, should burn away by lunchtime, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, we're starting this morning with a developing story, and the latest we're hearing from Lebanon is that at least 9 people were killed and nearly 3,000 injured, including members of the Hezbollah terrorist group, 200 of them injured critically.
The incident happened when their pagers exploded in what's described as the biggest security breach since fighting broke out with Israel almost a year ago.
Well, overnight, a senior Lebanese source said 5,000 devices had been tampered by Israel's spy service, Mossad.
And the big argument and debate this morning is Israel being accused of indiscriminately setting these pagers off, thousands exploding on people's waists, in their hands, and unfortunately a 10-year-old girl was one of those identified as being killed.
Well, late last night, the Foreign Office issued a statement from a spokesperson calling for calm heads and a de-escalation, which is always probably a little bit alarming when they do that. The Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, of course, urging all British citizens to leave Lebanon several weeks ago. The big question now is whether or not Hezbollah will retaliate. They have vowed to strike back. They say that there's been a violation of Lebanese sovereignty, and understandably, people are extremely concerned that this could be a significant escalation in violence in the Middle East.
And we spoke to Mark White in the previous hour. We're trying to get him now, but he suggested that Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, was behind the attack. I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but my concern is I'm not sure whether we know whether explosives were planted in the pagers prior to them being delivered to these Hezbollah fighters, or maybe somehow, and here's some footage on screen now, if you look at this chap just to the left who's paying for his groceries, his waistband just explodes. And this happened thousands of times all across the country. But my concern this morning is because we don't yet know how exactly Mossad, if it was them behind this, how they did it, are devices such as iPhones at risk from being attacked by nefarious forces and, exploding in our hands?
Yeah, already column inches are being written about that. I've just seen an article suggesting that President Putin of Russia is looking into using phones as some form of electronic device that could be exploded. It's obviously always worrying when new technology is used in this way. And everybody thought that actually these pages were going to be safer than using mobile phones because it was harder to track them. This huge shipment was made, we believe, which is when potentially they were tampered with. Let's get the analysis now of our home and security editor in all of this, Mark White. A worrying development, a technical first, I suppose you could say. Never seen anything like this before. What are Israel saying about it all?
Nothing. They have a policy of neither confirming nor denying operations involving their security services. I can answer that point that Ben raises quite understandably, but no, there is no risk of mobile phones or pagers exploding to the extent that they would cause the type of injuries that we saw across Lebanon and into Syria yesterday, with thousands injured. These devices were tampered with in the supply chain, and military-grade high explosives were placed inside the pagers. A battery, especially in a small device like a pager, would never be able to produce that kind of high-intensity blast that could remove hands and blind people. We've seen, of course, batteries under charge which explode because they're overheating, they're on charge too long, they're old batteries. That is a problem. And yes, the explosion can look quite dramatic, but it's nothing on the scale of the intensity of the blast we saw yesterday that were crippling people. And actually, to take a sort of cyber hack that would increase the heat on a battery, yes, in theory, it could be done, but it would take a while, and you would probably feel your device heating up. So I wouldn't worry that, you know, suddenly mobile phones and pagers could be turned into deadly weapons just like that. They have to be adapted in some way, as these pagers have, with this military-grade explosive being inserted into the devices.
From a military perspective, Mark, it is quite impressive. I've never, as Isabel alluded to, never seen or heard of anything like this before. Mossad, of course, known as being one of the most advanced intelligence agencies across the world. Do you think that's why Iran has been reluctant to retaliate to certain incidents over recent months? Because they're just not aware and probably even scared of the capabilities that Israel and Mossad have?
Well, look, there have been instances where electronic devices have been tampered with, such as mobile phones, and the same sort of thing has happened with military-grade explosives inserted inside them, and they have detonated, taking the heads of terrorists off. It's absolutely grisly to think about, but that's happened, but not on any kind of scale. Some rare instances of that type of thing happening. The coordination required, really, to infiltrate the production line for a start and ensure that these were pagers that were designed to head for this terrorist group, because it was Hassan Nasrallah, who's the head of Hezbollah, had urged his fellow terrorists, members of the group, not to use their mobile phones as much, to go back in time to a bygone era and to use pagers, because they can't be sort of tampered, they believed, and interfered with in the same kind of way and traced to the same extent. But in doing that, of course, now they've left themselves very vulnerable. We understand that, according to now a number of security sources, that this might not have been intended as an operation for yesterday, but the Israeli authorities were forced to move this forward because one or two Hezbollah operatives had become suspicious about this, so the approval, we understand, was given to detonate these devices. Whatever the timing, it's a massive blow to Hezbollah. The communication system is in pieces at the moment, and of course many of their fighters are either dead or critically injured, not in a fit state to do anything meaningful. Israel didn't want to lose that advantage, so detonated anyway. Having said that, where we are now is in a very significant escalation, with the potential, I don't even think potential, with the absolute likelihood that Hezbollah at some point, and Iran as well, are going to retaliate.
OK, I know you'll keep a close eye on any developments in this story for us, Mark, but for now, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Mark. Over to the UK now, where, of course, the spotlight still remains on Labour and the controversy surrounding donations and so-called freebies for cabinet members.
Yeah, it's quite shocking. You go to the Guardian newspaper, obviously a left-leaning paper, and it has a double-page spread
on the Prime Minister's penchant for freebies, exposing how they reckon 100 grand's worth of tickets and gifts have been enjoyed by Sir Keir Starmer, far more than any other leader of any other party in recent modern history. So, you know, when the left-leaning press are turning on you, you know that perhaps you're a little bit out of step. Yeah. It's not just him, though. It's his top team as well.
Yeah, Health Secretary Wes Streeting and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson are among those who accepted free tickets to see Taylor Swift this summer in London. And in total, Cabinet members, or ministers rather, took 9 grand's worth of tickets to see the US superstar at Wembley. And, of course, it's also emerged the Prime Minister's wife, Lady Victoria Starmer, accepted 2 free tickets worth hundreds of pounds to see not just one concert, Isabel, but 2 Taylor Swift concerts.
Yeah. Well, let's get the thoughts of our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and all of this. Look, if the rules are followed, you know, there isn't really much of an argument here, except that this is somebody who, for years, has been banging on to the Conservatives about things like Wallpapergate, and he just looks like a hypocrite, doesn't he?
I think it is a problem that he was incredibly critical, wasn't he, of Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak taking donations, allegations of cronyism, gifts, gold wallpaper, etc. And I think on one occasion there was something that Rishi Sunak hadn't declared in time. It was an oversight. It was quickly corrected. But Sir Keir Starmer, then opposition leader, you know, went to town on it and was saying, look, the rules are very clear, you must declare within 28 days. He is a stickler for the rules, and his view is, and we've asked him again and again about this in Rome repeatedly, that he has followed the rules, that it's important to follow the rules and be transparent. Now, in fact, in the case of his wife's clothes, a donation from Lord Ali, they hadn't realised that they needed to declare that. Then his team went and asked for advice. It turned out that they should have made the declaration earlier. They hadn't. They did that. They corrected it. But the point is that he's been very critical of other people basically doing exactly the same. So if you're going to criticise the Tories, then you've got to apply the same rules for yourself. And I think the optics of it are very tricky, given taking money from pensioners. It's getting colder, cost of living crisis is still biting, budget coming, lots more pain to come. And here we have, you know, 150 grand income for Prime Minister, and his wife works too. And they're taking money for clothes and glasses. The glasses, apparently, £2,500 in glasses from Lord Ali.
Yeah, people have been getting in touch this morning saying, my £2.50 pair from the garden centre don't look too bad. Why is he needing this? I mean, look, we can get silly about it all. But, you know, it's just, for me, it's about whether or not the rules have been followed. And, you know, it seems as though there was an oversight here. It's not being investigated specifically in relation to these donations. But what was it that Lord Ali got in return? You know, why did he need that access to Downing Street?
Yeah, they won't say, will they? They won't say. Wes Streeting, who, as of course we mentioned, is a Taylor Swift fan. He went to one of her concerts in Wembley, courtesy of some freebie tickets. He's giving a big speech later today, isn't he, Catherine, on reforming the NHS?
Yes, giving a speech at the IPPR Commission on Health and Prosperity event. Lord Darcy is going to speak. Of course, they've looked into the state of the NHS. We know that they found that it is broken. We'll be hearing about their plans for reform. Wes Streeting, I think, is going to have a battle on his hands because he wants to be quite radical. He said a lot of things in opposition about really fundamental NHS reforms, a lot of which the BMA are not going to like. But, I mean, some of this is ridiculous things like the reliance on fax machines and how behind the times they are with tech. And, you know, waste in that way. Some of it is bound to be money, though, of course, too, and there is not much money floating around. Well, and I think it's really
sloshed it all in these pay settlements, haven't they?
Well, they have chosen that £22 billion black hole. 9 billion of that is money that they've chose to give.
That was before they announced this BMA settlement, wasn't it? 9 billion was for train drivers and other unions that had been asking them. I'm not sure how much that's grown since the 22.3% over 2 years for junior.
Yes,
doctors.
I don't know.
Might be more.
I think it's at least 14 billion, all the public sector pay rises. Then 11.5 billion on climate aid to Africa. There's your 22 billion.
Well, yeah, but I mean, talking about climate change, it was interesting. I was at David Lammy, the new Foreign Secretary, gave his first foreign policy speech yesterday in Kew Gardens on the climate and nature, and he was saying, look, a lot of people feel that this is a bit niche, but this is the central issue of our times. And one thing particularly stood out to me was that he was saying, first of all, because the foreign aid budget has been cut, he was making a direct link between that and people crossing the channel on small boats. And another thing he was saying was that there's forecast that 200 million people could soon be on the move because of climate change. And, you know, many of those people are going to be heading north to North America or to Europe. So climate change, and of course, there's many skeptics about the degree to which people are responsible, but the climate is changing and it will have a direct impact on us in terms of migration, apart from anything else.
Well, that's what David Lammy says. If you ask any small boat arrival whether they're coming to the UK because it's getting hot where they are or there's floods, I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but I pretty much guarantee that it's to do with money and a better life, and indeed in places like Afghanistan, fleeing war, of course, but you know, climate change. I've said so many times on this channel, experts of yesteryear, senior UN scientists, climate scientists saying by the year 2000, Britain won't know what snow is. By the year 2020, Britain will be submerged in a Siberian climate. None of it comes to fruition.
Well, except David Lammy was saying yesterday that talking about our British wildlife being in decline, our biodiversity has been destroyed at an alarming rate. He talked about the state of our rivers, lakes and seas awash with toxic sewage. You don't have to be an expert to see what he's saying there. It's an interesting absorption of that role, though, for a Foreign Secretary. We can talk about that some more. We do have to move on. Thank you so much, Catherine. Appreciate your take on all that. But we want to talk now about the royals.
Yes, Prince Harry's back in town on Monday next week. And, of course, the great news this morning that the Princess of Wales, Catherine, she will be back at work. But hold your horses, as it might not be for more than a day or two with regards to Prince Harry, because the Duke will attend the 2024 World Child Awards on Monday next week.
Well, this comes after news that the King Charles did reportedly call his youngest son for his 40th birthday over the weekend. Is there a thawing in relations? Could there even be a meeting between Harry and his father next week? Let's get the thoughts from our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. The pair, of course, did meet after King Charles's shock diagnosis of cancer earlier in the year, but lots of eyebrows were raised about the brevity of that meeting, possibly because Queen Camilla was there, and of course we know that Harry had taken aim at her in his book Spare. But things seem to be improving. Relations are thawing.
Quite possibly, Isabel, yes. But of course, both sides, actually, both those sources close to the King and sources close to Prince Harry are remaining incredibly tight-lipped as to whether or not Prince Harry actually spoke to his father on his 40th birthday, which of course was on Sunday. Meghan hosted a big party for Harry's 40th in Montecito before Harry jetted off for a few days with the lads, with a few of his close friends, for some rest and recuperation. But in terms of family relations back in the United Kingdom, it is a huge question mark as to whether or not there's been any improvement in those relationships. As was confirmed last night, Prince Harry will be returning to the United Kingdom in time for the 30th of September to attend the World Child Awards. Prince Harry is patron of those awards. He has been for at least a decade now. It's a charity which helps or supports young people with severe illnesses here in the United Kingdom, and he's going to be attending the ceremony for that. But I asked the question yesterday, is this going to be a very quick in and out visit, as Prince Harry seems to have been doing every time he's come to the UK over the last couple of years? Or is he going to be staying longer and potentially having another meeting with his father? I suspect he's not going to be seeing his brother, but then of course the next question is, where is Prince Harry going to be staying? And also the security arrangements. We know that Prince Harry has to give the Home Office 28 days notice before he returns to the UK, so the necessary police protection can be put in place for him. And because of on that security note, we know that the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, his wife, is unlikely to attend, as are his children, because he said to an ITV documentary just last month that he will not bring them back to the UK because he cannot guarantee their safety over the security issue.
Colombia, interesting. Cameron, what about Harry staying at... Of course, he's not allowed in Frogmore anymore. He's been booted out. Prince Andrew, meanwhile, his uncle, is refusing to leave Royal Lodge at the request of his brother, the King. Couldn't Harry stay with Uncle Andy for the weekend?
Well, I think Prince Andrew's got enough problems this week because, of course, you've got that new Amazon dramatisation of the infamous interview with Emily Maitlis on BBC's Newsnight coming out on Thursday. Prince Andrew, as you say, reportedly refusing to budge from Royal Lodge. It's thought that King Charles and perhaps the Crown Estate, who manages Royal Lodge, wants to move Prince Andrew to Frogmore Cottage, Harry and Meghan's old house, because it's far more cost-effective, because Frogmore Cottage is in the guarded perimeter of the Windsor Castle estate. So there's police officers there already guarding the Prince and Princess of Wales and the King when the King is in residence, whereas Royal Lodge is in its separate perimeter and needs separate security, reportedly costing the King £3 million a year. And it looks like the King is fed up with paying £3 million a year for his brother's security.
Cameron, a quick word about the Princess of Wales. She held a meeting behind closed doors, also within the perimeter of Windsor yesterday, in the castle itself with her early years team. It seems as though light duties are now officially back underway.
Yeah, it is certainly a step in the right direction, Isabel. As you say, it was with her early years team. It's a cause which aides have previously described as her life's work, the importance of the first 5 years of a child's life and how that can impact adulthood. It's the first official meeting recorded in the court circular since she started cancer treatment back in February. Of course, she's been working from home since before trooping, actually, and having meetings with her staff, so private secretaries, communications secretaries, but those kind of meetings not recorded in the court circular. So this is the first official work meeting in that official record of royal family engagements. Of course, we saw her at Trooping the Colour, we saw her at Wimbledon. Perhaps we'll see her again in the next few months, but of course, because the princess still has good days and bad days with her health, it's unlikely Kensington Palace are going to confirm until at least the day before, if not the day of. But we know, I understand that the princess is really hoping to attend Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph on Remembrance Sunday in November, and she has started planning for her annual Christmas carol concert at Westminster Abbey. So things are looking positive, but baby steps.
I hope she plays the piano. That was so amazing last year.
Did she play the piano? I missed that.
Oh, the carol service last year. She it was
a couple of
pre-recorded,
years
wasn't
ago.
it, Cameron? It was beautiful. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was the first year. Yeah, it was the first year that she did the carol concert that she played the piano.
Time flies,
The second
Cameron.
year she didn't
Anyway,
play
it was incredible.
But we got cheeky Prince Louis.
Fabulous. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks, Cameron. OK, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. From today, junior doctors working across the NHS will be referred to as resident doctors instead. The British Medical Association fought for the change, which Health Minister Wes Streeting says will help reset the relationship between NHS doctors and the government. And it comes just days after resident doctors in England accepted the government's offer of a 22% pay rise, ending that 18-month pay dispute.
The former US President Donald Trump held his first rally since that second assassination attempt on his life on Sunday while he was golfing on his West Palm Beach resort. The presidential hopeful told attendees at the Michigan rally that he's prepared to use my gun to defend the presidency and my country. He also praised his opposition, Kamala Harris, saying he had a very nice call from her following the incident.
And did you see it last night? Stargazers were treated overnight to a rare partial eclipse of a supermoon. Eclipses rarely coincide with supermoons, making this one even more unusual. And it's only the second supermoon this year, and it's being called the harvest moon. Experts hope it will last until tomorrow morning.
You saw the moon, didn't you?
Yes, on my way to my hotel last night, I gazed up and the moon, massive in its stature, was there. Yeah, I love it.
It's when the moon actually lights up a room. I went to the bathroom in the night, didn't need to put the lights on because the moon was shining in through the window and it was gorgeous. I love these sort of moon stories.
There's great pictures there as well. Can we see them again? There we go.
Yeah, there was a plane there in front of the moon.
If you're listening on radio, it's basically the supermoon and a small aeroplane. Well, it's a jumbo jet, but eclipsed obviously by this massive moon making its way across. And yeah, really lovely sights. I love the stars. I love space, as we know.
We do.
We had a weird conversation last week about Mars, but we shan't get into
We won't get into that now, but what we do need to know is whether or not the skies are going to be clear at night. So if you haven't caught it already, you might be able to get a glimpse of it. Annie Shuttleworth will let you know if you're in with a chance.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of Western Wales, southwest England and parts of Western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, how do you fancy getting your hands on our great British giveaway? It is your chance to win a whopping 36,000 grand.
Yep, that's the equivalent of £3 grand, if my maths is correct, in your bank account each month, tax-free for the next year. What would you do with all that cash? Here's the details you need to make it yours.
Good rolling.
This is your luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Bank Holiday Monday, we'll be celebrating National Dog Day by uncovering how many pet owners would rather spend the bank holiday with their pet over their partner. In fact, new research has uncovered the 5 key personas that make up Generation Pet. That's a new wave of post-pandemic pet owners, with 58% saying they worry about their pet being diagnosed with a serious illness. Well, joining us now to tell us more about how we should be caring for our pampered pooches is Dr. Edwina Gildia.
Some of the interesting facts coming through that is that 80% of us think that pet as part of the family. The new pet owners who have come on board during the pandemic, there's a lot to learn with being a new pet owner. Interesting facts, as you mentioned, 1/3 of pet owners are preferring to spend time with their pet this weekend over their partner. 60% of pet owners, and dog owners specifically calling them out, say that their dog improves their mental health, and 55% noting that improves their physical health by getting out and about.
It's also about showing that love and appreciation for these animals which don't ask anything of us, but love.
That was another point that came through this research that we did at Zoetis UK, is that they bring a purpose to life. And I think that's another thing to call out. It's so important for ourselves, for society to have that purpose. But with that comes responsibility. And that's ensuring that we do support their health, and we know how to do that as well.
If you'd rather spend your bank holiday with your dog than your partner, maybe we've got too much of an over-reliance on our pets?
I think it depends on what way you look at it. For some people, it may be a connection. I think it's a positive thing that we have, and we should celebrate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You like cycling, don't you?
I do like cycling.
Got your peloton?
I do a lot of peloton cycling now. I live in the country, but when I was in London, I was on my bike all the time.
Oh, I'd be too scared to ride in London. Did you wear a helmet?
No, the kids did. But we live near the river, so we could get onto the cycle path and the walkways along there, so it was absolutely fine.
The reason I'm asking is because a London borough, a council, is threatening to ban all e-bikes from the area if safety concerns about them are not addressed.
Well, Brent Council told Lime that all 750 dockless bikes must be gone by the end of October if requests for improved safety measures are ignored. So perhaps the sort of extreme conclusion of all of this is, should we axe the bikes entirely from London?
Get rid of them. Co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller, and political commentator Emma Wolfe joins us now to debate this. Good morning to you both. Thank you for joining us. Alan, we'll start with you. E-bikes, I always say they're cheating, really, and they're a bit of a menace. What do you reckon?
I think the problem is that they've demonstrated that they've taken up a lot of spaces. They've often left that they're lying over. It's a menace, definitely, to disabled people, to people who've got poor eyesight, the elderly, mothers with prams or fathers with prams, all sorts of issues like that. I'm not a big fan of banning things, but I think we have to ask ourselves why there's been so many of them. There's a proliferation of them everywhere, and it's partly to do with the constant nudge and imposition of this cycling agenda. Often we see cycling lanes that are empty. We have a situation where there's a kind of war on cars where people have had limits, roadblocks, CCTV surveillance, all with a spurious notion, well, actually, fake news that 4,000 people were dying because of the air, this clean air idea that bikes and walking needs to happen. Liverpool streets and active travel has been pushed by the mayor and by many others and by Transport for London, who should be concentrating on the underground and the logistics. So I think we have to ask ourselves why there's so many of them. There are obviously ways to manage things, right? There's a sensible way you could manage things, but why do we have so many of them, and why are they all strewn over the floor? They are a menace as they stand at the moment, but we have to have a bigger discussion about the relationship between transport, movement, mobility, and what the public wants. Because remember, many people have responded in consultations, and they say they want to have the freedom to drive in different places and not be constantly regulated, not 20 miles an hour everywhere, not LTNs, and certainly not have to get on your bike if you're a van driver or if you're late at night and you're a woman. There's a range of different criteria where you just can't do those things necessarily. So that needs to be the context of the discussion. I think that Hounslow and Brent and Wandsworth all have very, very big concerns with them.
Although if there wasn't any demand, surely there wouldn't be any of these bikes. Emma, you're in favour of them. Tell us why.
Well, I'm a passionate cyclist, and I'm actually a purist. I think that e-bikes are cheating. They're not real cycling. But look, we have an obesity crisis in this country. I think it's really, really important that, first of all, people are active. People are getting out there and active. Even on an e-bike, there is some pedaling involved. So people are getting about. It's easing the pressure off public transport in our towns and cities, which is really important. And it is tackling pollution and congestion, and, as I say, taking the pressure off our creaking transport services. Completely agree with Alan that people need to use them responsibly. It's weird with cyclists. You know, just like drivers, the majority of drivers are safe and considerate. But there are going to be some e-bike users who are unsafe. They zoom through red lights. They totally cut people up. They're really unsafe. They leave the bikes everywhere. Actually, I think that's down to the companies, whether that's Lime Bikes, Forest Bikes, Santander. There are lots of different companies. They need to provide better facilities, better docking stations, better space around our public spaces. You know, the streets are a mess anyway, littered with well, they're littered with trash and they're littered with, street paraphernalia. So I think there's a lot. But look, I'm in London. Many Londoners who never dreamed of cycling before on a proper bike are now using e-bikes.
Yeah.
That's got to be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a binary thing, Alan. It doesn't have to be about the war on drivers. I don't drive. I don't have a license. But it's not that cyclists hate drivers. It doesn't need to be a war. If we're going to go for this net zero nonsense that Miliband is pushing, then everything needs to be in the mix. And the fact that people are moving around in a fast, clean, green, efficient way is a good thing.
Alan?
So, there's a few things. It isn't that bicycles are resolving the creaky transport system. It's that we haven't had proper investment in the transport system, and we've reduced and narrowed our roads, and we're digging up perfectly decent roads to put on parks on our roads. That's happening across the boroughs in London, particularly Newham, Tower Hamlets, Islington and others, where they're saying 70 to 80% of the areas the roads will be closed off. It is a war on cars. I'm also an avid cyclist. The problem is now we've got an average mile per hour that was a bit like the medieval times, horse and carts, and the only way some people can get around is if they're forced to go on a bike. But many people cannot go on bicycles, right? If you're a tradesperson, if you're delivering food, if you've got all sorts of tools, you can't do what David Lammy said and just get on the tube or get on the bus. It's a very particular outlook that thinks that, this is something that can be benefit to everyone. People were cycling before. And what we've got now is a situation where our whole logistics and transportation is being dominated by shutting roads, all the internal roads where you've got low traffic neighbourhoods and roadblocks, and forcing cars onto main arteries, and then saying, well, these bikes are taking pressure off of transport. It's an upside down approach.
Emma, a quick final thought.
There are sensible ways to, like Santander have done, to do things with bikes. But the bigger question is, why are there so many, and why are they pushing them so much? Why does Transport for London not get more serious about making sure services and provision and the health of the air is better?
Sorry to interrupt you. We're short on time. Let Emma just have a final word before we wrap.
I just think you're conflating two slightly different issues. So many of the things that you say about driving and moving around London and the roads being closed and low traffic neighbourhoods, I would completely concur with. But the issue of e-bikes is another thing. It is a positive green initiative. It just needs to be managed properly.
OK. Emma Wolfe, Alan Miller, good to get your thoughts this morning. On the deliveries thing, you do see bikes doing deliveries now, whether it's parcel companies, you see them pulling along little machines behind them, and you also see, I think it's Freddie Flowers and other organisations now using their bicycles. So there are examples where deliveries are being used on two wheels. If you've got some examples, send them our way. Meanwhile, we're going to head to the sport in just a mo.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Wednesday morning. In Leicestershire, the northbound M1, a lane closed there at the minute due to an accident. Junction 20 at Lutterworth, junction 21 for the M69. In Derbyshire, the northbound M1, partially blocked due to a broken down vehicle. Junction 28 for Alfreton and Mansfield, junction 29 for Chesterfield and Mansfield. And in Kent, the London-bound M2, a lane closed on the exit Slip Road due to a broken down vehicle at junction 4 for Gillingham. In Hampshire, the southbound M3, all lanes are now open. There was a broken down vehicle there, junction 4A at Farnborough to junction 5 at Hook, and also too in Monmouthshire, the Severn Bridge, the M48, traffic temporarily being held due to an accident at the moment from junction 2 for Cheapsdown to junction 1 at Austin. In Cheshire, the westbound M62, a lane closed on the entry Slip Road due to a broken down vehicle at junction 11 for Birchwood this morning. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Paul Coyce is here with all the latest sports news. Paul, what's going on and where?
Champions League, firstly. We'll go through yesterday. Young Boys 0, Aston Villa 3. Good result for Aston Villa. So they're back in the Champions League. Well, they won the European Cup way back in '83, and now they're back again. And very good result. But the Young Boys, yeah, you'd expect them to win, but Aston Villa were good, very professional. Same with Liverpool as well, who beat AC Milan at the San Siro. They went 1-0 down. Our friend Arne Slot. We like Arne Slot, don't we?
Well, you two keep saying you like him.
What do you
I mean, what do we like about him?
He just seems like a likeable chap. He seems friendly. He seems nice. He seems like he knows what he's doing.
Why do you dislike him?
Why do you have to be so contrarian all the time?
Can't you just start from a standpoint of liking people until you have a reason not to like them?
I just don't know the guy.
Contrary.
Well, let me introduce...
I've heard him say about 5 words in my life.
Well, let me introduce you to him now. It was his birthday yesterday. How would the manager celebrate after a game? He would smile. He's Arne Slot.
Before other managers have won a Champions League tie on their birthday, including Sir Bobby Robson, Roberto Mancini, Arsene Wenger. It's pretty good company.
It's pretty good company, but I hope to do more special things in the future and be in the special company of these legends of the game, instead of only winning a tie at your birthdays.
Nice guy, he's respectful, and he looks free. I like the look of him.
Seems okay, yeah.
No, your cup of tea.
Reminds me of Steve McLaren and his stint at FC Twente in Holland.
The bizarre thing, though, is Arne Slot actually is Dutch, so he can get away with that accent.
Would you remember McLaren's... Oh, I wish we had a clip. Of course we don't. McLaren adopted the Dutch accent.
Yes.
So, Steve, how was the game? He's like, well, they were good until the attack, and yeah, it was very good.
He said...
He'd been there 2 weeks.
How you say Champions League?
How you say Champions League? A very tough competition, but
tonight Manchester City will play Inter Milan. So they're playing the other Milan side. Celtic against Slovan Bratislava of Slovakia, the lowest-ranked team in the tournament. So there's British teams in that. Carabao Cup. There were some interesting results yesterday. Preston won, Fulham won. It went to 36 penalties, but Fulham came through in that. Manchester United beat Barnsley 7-0. And should we do a couple of birthdays?
Yeah,
we've
got always time, but you've got to do it quickly.
Seeing as we did Arne Slot, I'll try my best. Right, who's the first one then? Let's see who's sporting birthdays. First one today is our friend.
Oh, Shilty.
Here's Peter Shilton. How old is Peter Shilton today, who I know will be watching? Happy birthday. Peter Shilton played more games for England than anybody else, 125. How old is he today?
78.
Oh, 76.
75 is the answer. One more. Let's do another one. We've got 2 more to go, so we'll fly through these. One more, so nobody there.
Who's that?
I have no idea. Who is that? See, the thing is, I know it's a kid on a... But I know for a fact it's Lance Armstrong's birthday, but I don't know whether that's a picture.
That must be it.
Is that Lance Armstrong as a child?
Yeah. How old is he today? 57.
So he wasn't juiced up back in those days, I don't think.
Strong sock game.
Yeah, I know.
Those
How old is Lance Armstrong today?
57.
I'm still laughing at the picture. What do you reckon?
I think that's old. 49.
53.
Crikey.
53.
So who won that? You won that one.
I don't know.
So not only are we playing Guess the Age, we're going to guess who the hell this person is.
Oh, just adding an extra dimension to the pub quiz this morning.
Exactly.
We've got to wrap there, but
Okay,
I'm
fine for
happy
me.
with that. Yeah, Darren Gough or Lance Armstrong. You choose from the 10-year-old photographs there.
Who
Love
was
it.
the kid on the bike? Might have been. Actually, I think it was me.
Was it?
I think it was. But it's not my birthday.
You wouldn't forget those socks, I don't think.
Oh,
right,
no.
stay with us. Coming up, we're going to be discussing Ed Davey's eye-catching performance, if you want to call it that, at the Lib Dem conference as we go through the papers in just a moment.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
70% of population will make a judgment on someone just by looking at them. And within 2-3 seconds, we make a decision if we like someone or not.
Really? Is it that quick?
So it's actually very, very fast. So before we have a chance to kind of express what we want to say, our subconscious mind is kind of looking for clues. So you look at someone and you look at their, for example, I don't know, the watch they're wearing, maybe the makeup. I spent literally my whole childhood learning, being absolutely mesmerized by my mom's ability to choose different style of clothing for different style personalities. British definitely take a pride in their appearance. They do spend time to look good. There is a lot of amazing British designers. For me, it was always about that feeling that I've learned from my mom's shop, how the people were living, buying certain things. And I was like, oh my God, they look happy. They've got this big smile on their face. My main objective always was to make people feel good. So now as a stylist, I help them to go through style therapy. I help them to discover colors that are good for their colors that they wear them close to their face, but also it sets the tone for their wardrobe. And then we look at the outfit formula. So it's, yeah. When I look at Ellie's dress sense, I was just thinking, okay, she likes to be polished.
I do like to be polished.
Exactly. Elegant. Timeless. I look at the reference to the dress you're wearing today. It's that kind of Chanel black and white, timeless, never go out of fashion. So for me, it's about, it's not the trends, but how you would like your personal style to be and how timeless it can be.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joining us now to go through all of the newspaper front pages today, and indeed the stories inside, is broadcaster and journalist Claire Muldoon and former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire. Good morning and
good morning.
Welcome back to you both. Should we start with Ed Davey? What's he been up to at the Lib Dem conference?
Well, what's so shocking is how little coverage the Lib Dem conference has been getting. I mean, all the Times only has a sketch. The Telegraph, I don't think, mentions it. The Guardian and the Eye have a bit. I mean, actually, the Lib Dems have 72 MPs, and they are celebrating. They're having a wonderful time, and thinking that life could go on. And actually, they think that this could get better. What's so interesting about what Ed Davey said was, of course, he talked about carers and social care, and said that that's what they're going to go on policy, but where he's going after the Tories. Is basically
One Nationers.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Is that he says the Tories are where we can get, and we're going to criticise Labour, but we're only going to criticise them when they're wrong.
It really is an interesting shift in politics, because what we're going to find out, depending on who the Tories choose as their next leaders, whether or not they are going to effectively be going to the right, trying to target those reform votes, and therefore it opens the goal, doesn't it, for the Lib Dems to mop up those centrist votes. James Cleverly yesterday was complaining that Ed Davey had been treating the election campaign like he'd been on a stag do. But, you know, a lot of people would say actually it's just bringing a bit of joy to otherwise doom and misery in politics, and Starmer basically promising the end of the world at the moment. But maybe that doesn't sell. Maybe that's why it's not getting in the papers, because actually people want to talk about the misery.
Well, Lib Dems have always really done they've always really polled very well locally. But I think what's going to bite Ed Davey is the fact that of NIMBYism, when they start to try and build all these new houses that Labour are promising, then a lot of the Lib Dem seats will be like, well, actually, we don't want them here. So there's going to be an issue there. And James Cleverly, in my view, is a bit of a stationary salesman, actually. And I just don't think he's really got the good enough grasp. And I think it's foolhardy for him to actually say that Ed Davey was being retrospectively treating the election campaign as a bit of joy and whatever. And I think, well, no, I think he did bring gravity when he had to, but he's very much a man of care, of gratitude, and I think he's actually a very good, you know, he's got very good standards.
Well, he's still having a laugh, because we'll show you this clip from the Lib Dem conference. Ed Davey got on the stage and belted out what some would call a banger.
Line, the gas is free. Take a chance on me. Leave me, let me go and be alright. I've got no place to go.
It is.
I haven't seen that. I have to say, I hadn't seen the sing along.
You can't unseen it now.
Possibly one of the worst things I've ever seen in modern British politics. That's not a political statement. That is just. I mean, my ears are bleeding.
Well, I think to find somebody who's worse at singing than me really says something. And honestly...
But he's doing something right. They've gone from 8 seats to 70 odd.
Yep.
You know, so, I mean, we can knock it and we can say it's not taking politics seriously, but look what we've got to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
No, I think it's great that he's not taking politics seriously. I just wish he could sing.
He is taking politics seriously, to be clear. I mean, he said he's going to be opposing the assisted dying bill if and when it comes to a vote and a debate in the Commons. That's
which
an
it will
interesting
do.
Position. Yeah, Starmer taking a very different position on that.
I'd rather some fun and a bit of joy from Ed Davey than what Boris Johnson would call the human bollard in Sir Keir Starmer. So, a bit of enthusiasm.
Starmer, the granny embalmer.
I did a bit of that as well, didn't he? And it worked really well for him.
It worked really well, except he never delivered. I mean, I do think the difference is that Ed Davey absolutely really believes in what he says, and he really believes
every
that
politician should really believe what they say, Scarlett.
I completely agree, and I actually think Keir Starmer does believe in what he says, but I do think
Really? His record doesn't speak of that. He's been banging on the Tories for 4 years about cronyism and donors and corruption, and within 6 weeks has done exactly the same thing on steroids. I think he's a massive hypocrite.
I think that was a mistake, but I do so. I think that the thing about Boris is he never believed in anything. That was his problem. Anyway,
he won elections. Should we move on to
an election?
Well, lots as London Mayor. Anyway, let's talk. Which one do you want to do?
Teachers allowed to work from home. Teachers are allowed to work from home under new Labour plans to tackle the recruitment crisis in schools.
Actually, no. Let's say what this is saying that when you're
Scarlett.
No, I'm trying to explain the story.
You advised Bridget Phillips.
No, this isn't. And I haven't talked to Bridget about this at all. But I have read the story in the Telegraph, and what it says is that you can do your marking at home.
Don't they do that already?
No, they don't do marking at home. And what they're going to try and do...
a lot of them do.
This is during free periods.
And they're going to try and do free periods so that you can either come in later or go in earlier, because actually there is a real recruitment problem, and a lot of... This comes from the head, saying this is how we're going to get more teachers, and this is how to... It is not about teaching online. It is about doing things that you can easily do at home, at home.
I thought 11 weeks holiday might be... appealing to a lot of people to be a teacher. Anyway, we've got to leave it there. Thanks. Let us know your thoughts on all of those topics. Here's Annie Shuttleworth with your forecast.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many of us to come, many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of Western Wales, southwest England and parts of Western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Wednesday morning. In Leicestershire, the northbound M1 moving better now following the earlier accident. 20 at Lutterworth to 21 for the M69 for Leicester. In Derbyshire, the northbound M1 partially blocked due to a broken down vehicle. Junction 28 for Alfreton and Mansfield to junction 29 for Chesterfield and Mansfield. And in Kent, the London-bound M2, a lane closed on the exit slip road due to a broken down vehicle at junction 4 for Gillingham. Currently in Buckinghamshire, the clockwise M25, long delays and a lane closed due to an accident. This is junction 16 for the M40. Queues back to junction 14 at Heathrow at the minute. And in Hampshire, the westbound M27, one lane is closed due to an accident. That's at junction 12 for the M275 for Portsmouth. One lane closed on the Severn Bridge in Monmouthshire eastbound due to an accident at junction 2 at Chepstow to junction 1 at Oss. That's going to affect you. It's causing queues on surrounding routes as well this morning. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is your...
Very good morning to you. The tinderbox in the Middle East as Lebanon accuses Israel of orchestrating that shocking attack on pagers belonging to the Hezbollah militia group.
At least 9 are confirmed dead, 200 seriously injured and thousands also sustaining injuries as the United Nations issues a fresh demand for Israel to end its presence in Palestine.
As Israel is suspected of planting 5,000 explosives, the Foreign Office here says it's closely monitoring developments and is calling for de-escalation.
Inflation figures out this morning remaining at 2.2%. That is above the government's own targets of 2%.
And Cabinet Ministers raise eyebrows as it comes to light they accepted more than £9,000 worth of tickets to see Taylor Swift in concert over the summer.
The Princess of Wales has delighted the nations. She's marked her return to royal work with an early years meeting in private inside Windsor Castle.
And as today marks 10 years since the Scottish independence referendum, we find out whether there's still appetite for yet another vote.
And as one London borough threatens to ban e-bikes, we've been asking this morning if it is time to axe them all together.
Good morning. Another foggy start for some of us. Most of the cloud, though, should burn away by lunchtime, but you can find out all the details with me a little later on.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast. OK, the big story this morning, of course, is the risk of escalation in the Middle East. 9 people have been killed, nearly 3,000 injured in Lebanon, including members of the Hezbollah terrorist group and, indeed, a 10-year-old girl.
Well, overnight, a senior Lebanese source claimed that the explosions had been caused by 5,000 pages that had been tampered with by Israel's spy service, Mossad.
Well, in a bid to ease fears this morning, the Foreign Office is calling for, quote, calm heads and de-escalation as the West continues to push for a ceasefire deal in the coming days.
Well, we're now joined by our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who can shed yet more light on this. Obviously, a very worrying picture in an already febrile part of the world. But what more can you tell us specifically about not only this innovative new method of mass destruction, if you like, but also the source? Because it sounds as though these pages were intercepted on their way into Lebanon, but they were allegedly made in Europe.
Yeah, well, the company that manufactured the pagers is Taiwanese-based, but they outsourced the manufacture of the pagers to another company based in Hungary, and of course all involved denying that they were in any way complicit in the interception of these devices and, of course, the tampering with them that injected, we're told, military-grade explosives into thousands of these pagers for onward transmission to the terror group Hezbollah. Now, it's just an incredible feat, clearly. The organisation, as well as the technical know-how required to do that, to be able to ensure for a start that the pagers that you were putting these explosives into were the ones that were being bought up by Hezbollah itself. And that follows, of course, an instruction by Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, at the beginning of the war in Gaza, instructing his followers, fellow terrorists, not to use mobile phones as much and to go old school, to go back to pagers, which they thought were impregnable.
Sounds like something out of a James Bond movie or something. There has been some criticism of Israel overnight, if it is indeed Mossad behind this, because they're been accused of indiscriminately setting these pages off, and there has been collateral damage. I mentioned the 10-year-old girl was one of the people killed. Have they got a case to answer there, or is that just, you know, to be quite frank, that's war?
Well, I mean, of course, it's terrible when any civilians are caught up in this. But you could actually say that, you know, these were discriminate attacks, not indiscriminate attacks, because the people who would operate and use these pagers were Hezbollah terrorists and their associates. But of course, they have family lives, they have families, and it's possible, you know, a pager is in a bedroom, it goes off, a child goes to look at it. We just, you know, most of the damage, though, is very localised, very clever the way these devices were designed to explode and cause significant localised harm to whoever was wearing or holding that pager, blowing hands off, blinding individuals.
You were saying it was discriminate in the sense that it was targeting Hezbollah militias. Interesting that one of those who's been seriously injured, Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amani, blinded.
Yes, and that just ups the ante further. I would maybe ask the question of why the ambassador to Iran would have a pager for a known terrorist group. But there you go. He's lost one eye, we understand, has been blind. I don't know, blinded in both eyes. But of course, that just escalates it further. To remind our audience that we had been expecting a very significant missile and drone attack from Iran in the wake of what was believed to have been another Israeli assassination of the political head of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, on the 31st of July in the Iranian capital, Tehran. That had cooled down a bit. They were allowing negotiations to go ahead between Hamas and Israel. But now I think, all bets are off. Hezbollah will certainly want to respond. They're in no position to respond at the moment, with thousands of their operatives taken out of the picture for some considerable time, some permanently.
Yeah. And just very briefly, because we're running out of time, but there was some conjecture online this morning and indeed in the newspapers saying that, well, if Mossad can do this, what is capable when it comes to our mobile phones? Could our mobile phones and smartphones blow up? It's a different case, is it?
Well, there is a wider issue about the safety of mobile devices, with battery problems, overheating and exploding, but never to the extent the high-intensity blasts that can do so much harm and kill people. These were tampered with. Yeah. These were, high military-grade explosives were put into them. So the weapon going forward, if anybody was to think about, somehow hacking phones to make them overheat, I think it would be pretty ineffective, really.
OK. Thanks, Mark White, Home and Security Editor.
Right, let's turn our attention to domestic matters. The spotlight remaining on Labour and the controversy surrounding donations and so-called freebies for cabinet members.
It's been revealed the Health Secretary Wes Streeting and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson are among those who accepted free tickets to see Taylor Swift in London this summer. And it's also emerged the Prime Minister's wife, Lady Victoria Starmer, accepted 2 free tickets worth hundreds of pounds. That's after she also received £5,000 worth of free clothing, of course. The Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, has publicly defended Sir Keir Starmer, insisting he's a person of enormous integrity.
Well, even the Guardian newspaper, of course, hugely supportive of a Labour government, have done a double-page spread detailing what they estimate to be £100,000 worth of gifts, more than for any other leader of any political party in recent modern history, which says it all, surely, doesn't it, Catherine Forster?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because you'd expect the right-wing papers, the Mail and so on, to go big on this. But the fact that The Guardian has gone into all the different donations for tickets, for football matches, for Taylor Swift, for clothing, for spectacles, etc., is quite significant, I think. Come up with this figure of £100,000. So Sir Keir Starmer, as leader of the opposition, now Prime Minister, has accepted more than any other recent leader. And the optics, I think, are politically very difficult because himself and his wife, combined income of, let's say, a couple of £100,000, and yet taking thousands for clothing, £2,500 apparently just for the Prime Minister's spectacles at a time where they are taking money from pensioners. Now, OK, their argument is that there's plenty of pensioners didn't need the money, that the ones on pension credit will still get it, but
and
charities...
this isn't taxpayers' money. That's an important distinction as well, isn't it, that we're talking about in terms of these gifts, whereas obviously trying to make savings for the taxpayer in terms of the pensioners.
Yes, and important to say, too, that, no rules have been broken. This is the Prime Minister's argument, that he abides by the rules. The rules do allow MPs, politicians, to take donations. They just have to declare it. The only rule that's been broken was his wife's, Lord Ali, this big Labour donor, those donations for his wife's clothes should have been declared within 28 days, and they weren't. That was one mistake. Worth saying, when Rishi Sunak made a similar error in terms of the timing, Sir Keir Starmer came down on him like a ton of bricks. But I think most people will think that's a technicality. But it's the fact that he was so vociferous in opposition about calling these things out. And lots of people will say that he's now doing the same. And also the fact that clearly they're not poor, and they're taking these donations where they could pay for things themselves. I
Catherine,
think it's tricky.
You spent a bit of time with Sir Keir Starmer on the way to Washington, on the way to Rome. I kind of get the feeling, and others, our viewers, get the feeling that, you know, when he reels out these buzzwords of I'm not going to take lectures from these people, I'm not going to take lectures from you, that seems to be his word of the month at the moment. Is there a sense of arrogance about him and all the scandals embroiling Labour and him and his family at the moment? Or, I mean, does he seem to care? Is he bothered? Does he think he's done anything wrong? What's he like in a personal capacity on that issue?
My impression from questioning him about this in Rome, along with other journalists, he was asked many, many questions, is that he genuinely just feels that he hasn't done anything wrong because he is a stickler for the rules. He says the rules are very important to be transparent. I have followed the rules. There is nothing to see here.
Needs to persuade the Guardian of that then, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but I think it is difficult, and I think what Labour need to remember is, sure, they've got this massive majority. They're talking about 10 years in power, but his approval ratings have already fallen through the floor, and many of the seats that they've got by very narrow margins. So they've got them at the moment, but that does not mean they can count on keeping them.
It should be an interesting PMQs today, that's for sure, with lots to talk about, and not least inflation figures out this morning. Just to summarise, that's 2.2%, which is the same as the previous month of July. Not at the government's target of 2%, but, you know, not too far off. I suppose they'll say still work to be done.
They will. There won't be PMQs because they're in recess because of conference.
There we go.
So not today, but the next one. I'm sure Rishi Sunak is going to be talking about this. I suspect this story is going to continue to run. Yeah, inflation steady at 2.2%. I mean, I think it's worth saying, really, that the new government can't take credit for this because they've only been in power a couple of months. The fact that inflation is now at a more normal level, partly because of energy prices, food prices stabilising, partly the previous government will say because of decisions that they took to be quite strict on pay awards for public sector workers, etc., something that this government is taking a slightly different approach.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. All right, Catherine, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Well, Labour cabinet ministers appear to be filling their boots, and you can too in the Great British Giveaway. It's your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra £3,000 a month in your bank account each month for the next year.
Yeah, it's tax-free. It equates to £36,000. Here's how it could be yours.
This is your... and good luck.
Still to come. Sorry.
No, it's just wishing people luck.
I interrupt you.
I know, I just waffle on when I shouldn't, really.
Manners.
Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, some good news on the royal front. The Princess of Wales is back to royal duties. And, of course, who's back in town on Monday? Hazza. Harry's back. Do you welcome him back? Without Meghan, though, keenly. We'll be back in a sec.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
A window cleaner is battling to prove he has the only portrait of William Shakespeare made in his lifetime.
Yes, so owner Stephen Wadlow has been trying to validate the painting for years. He's had it x-rayed, he's had it analysed by experts, he's had it scientifically dated back to 1595 when the playwright was 31 years old. If it is the Bard, it could be worth north of £200 million.
Steve, welcome to GB News. First of all, just explain how you came to have this painting in your possession.
It was sat there all my lifetime, sort of thing, while I was growing up, above the television in the corner. It was only back about 12 years ago that a visitor, she said, "Oh, I think it looks like William Shakespeare, or, you know, I like your copy of William Shakespeare," and was shocked to see it was an original painting. So it was only then that I started researching, and the different institutions have helped with the x-rays and all the rest of it. But then, is it actually Shakespeare? Well, all the facial comparisons, technology, everything like that, all matches with the Judicial, which is the only known 2D image of Shakespeare. And who do you go to find that out?
There's a suggestion in the Sun's write-up of this story that you've been struggling to be heard in the academic world, the lofty art world. It's all a bit snooty. It's about who you know, and you're a tradesman.
Yes. That is definitely true in some avenues, but then I have to say, and it's lovely to be able to have this opportunity to say it, there's other people in that world that have been fabulous. It's taken a long time to sort of get listened to. We want the discussion out there because all the evidence that we've got indicates that this really should be discussed.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Now, the Princess of Wales is back in action, back at work, albeit behind closed doors.
Yeah, good news. Her Royal Highness held an early years meeting at Windsor Castle yesterday afternoon, and it was the first meeting that's been noted in the court circular since the Princess began her cancer treatment earlier this year.
Well, let's cross over to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who can bring us up to date on what exactly she was up to yesterday. She was surrounded by her close team, who I know have obviously supported her as well throughout what's been a difficult few months. But interesting, her first meeting with something very close to her heart.
Yes, indeed, Isabel. It's a further step on her road to recovery. And as you say, early years is something that's been described as the princess's life's work. And she held a meeting, as you say, in Windsor Castle yesterday, surrounded by her close team, both private secretaries, we believe, as well as a team from the Royal Foundation Centre for Early Childhood. That's the centre she set up to promote the first 5 years of a child's life and tell everyone the importance about it and also how that can impact adulthood. So it was recorded in the court circular, and for those of you who don't know, the court circular is the official record of the royal family's activities, and this meeting is the first such official meeting that the princess that has been recorded to do with the princess since she began cancer treatment way back in February. Now, we know that the princess has been working at home since before Trooping the Colour, which happened in June. She's been having meetings with her official team, so private secretaries, communication secretaries, but those kind of meetings not recorded in the court circular. This is something external, inviting external people in to take part in a meeting with the Princess of Wales, and of course something, as you say, very close to her heart. And it was only last week that the Princess of Wales announced to the world via a very deeply personal and emotional video message that she has now completed her course of preventative chemotherapy, and this meeting is the next step into continuing more and more engagement. So we do understand that the princess wants to carry out some engagements between now and Christmas. I suspect, because we've had this meeting to do with the early years, that the princess will hope at least that she can squeeze in an early years engagement before the end of Christmas. But of course she still has good days and bad days with her health, so I suspect Kensington Palace will not be confirming any such engagements until much closer to the time. I do understand that the princess still is very keen to attend separately the Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph on Remembrance Sunday in November, and she has started planning with her official team on that annual Christmas Carol concert at Westminster Abbey, surrounded by and inviting patrons or people who are involved in the charitable work of the Princess of Wales. So it's baby steps, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I guess, she'd probably want to get back to some sense of normality by getting back to work. Who can blame her? And, long may it continue. Cameron, can we just touch on Prince Harry? He's, of course, returning to the UK on Monday without Meghan Markle. Do you think maybe he'd give the Princess of Wales a quick visit, if not his brother?
I suspect not. We did get a message from the Prince and Princess of Wales' social media account on Sunday wishing the Duke of Sussex a very happy 40th birthday, but it wasn't signed off with W and C, i.e. William and Catherine, so they personally didn't write the tweet. But I doubt that their team would have posted that without the Prince and Princess's permission to do so. Now, because Prince Harry no longer a working member of the royal family, it's not automatic that a royal social media account, either Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace, would post a happy birthday message for him. But because it's his 40th birthday, because it's a milestone birthday, that is the custom to do so. So perhaps a little bit of a gesture of goodwill, but I don't think we can read into this that this has been an olive branch extended to Prince Harry from either William or Catherine. I suspect and I understand that they are still not on speaking terms. When Prince Harry does return to the United Kingdom on the 30th of September for the World Child Awards, he's patron of the World Child Awards. It's a UK charity that helps very ill and sick children, that it will be a very quick in and out visit because there's still the security issue, and Prince and King Charles even still continuing cancer treatment, and he's having to gear up and keep his energy ready for the autumn tour to Australia and Samoa next month.
OK, Cameron, thanks very much indeed.
OK, Britain's newsroom is up at 9:30. Just Bev at the moment. What have you done to Andrew? Have you locked him in the loo or something?
I think he's on his way here on a motorbike. I'm sure he'll be here any minute.
What's in store on your programme?
Well, we've got Stephen Pound and Mike Parry, two of our most popular panellists, on this morning. We're going to be talking about this story in France. I don't know whether you've seen it. This gentleman, this man, this monster, who drugged his wife and let 50 men rape her. I don't know if you've covered it this morning, but the way that
touched on it
she
briefly,
was greeted by the public when she came out of court, because obviously she waived her anonymity and was met with cheers and was given bouquets. She's a remarkable woman. Teachers working from home, and whether that is a good idea, but it's for marking and lesson planning and reading.
Who's going to be in school? Who's going to be safeguarding the kids?
I think I'm all right with this, you know. Well, you might be surprised to know. I don't want you teaching my kids from your kitchen if the kids are in the classroom, but if it's saying to particularly working parents, you know what, if you've got a free period until 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, do your lesson planning at home, come in a bit later, don't sit in a classroom where you're going to be interrupted every 5 minutes by someone saying, miss, or knocking on the door and saying, you know, can you just come and do this when you've got work to do? I think that's all right. Andrew may disagree with me on that. We've got Sophie Reaper, obviously, at the Lucy Letby inquiry to find out how these crimes were able to happen within the NHS. Obviously, running alongside that story is whether she is guilty of all of these crimes. It obviously questions, even David Davis MP is saying quite publicly that he thinks there are questions to be asked about the validity of some of those.
But I've spoken to people who have been in that courtroom for months on end, every day of that trial, and they said there is absolutely no doubt that she's guilty. And I just get the feeling that other people are commenting from the outside who weren't in that courtroom.
Well, there was this letter, I think it was signed by something like 120 experts, sent to the government to try and delay this Thirlwell inquiry because they were concerned around the use of statistics and how it was shown to the jury. But that was actually thrown out. The inquiry went ahead. There have been 2 previous attempts at an appeal in this, and they've both failed. So, you know, at what point are we going to accept her convictions? And, you know, what does this mean for the families? And the families say that people speculating about her guilt or not is hugely hurtful.
Yeah. I think there are questions to be asked about that case, and I thought so right from the very beginning, because these were very, very poorly babies who could easily have lost their lives at any moment. And knowing a little bit about these sorts of NHS maternity units particularly, sometimes there are instances in which women might be blamed, or midwives or care workers might be blamed for something that is a bit of a cover-up. But that, and also a gender-fluid dash under the middle of an LGBT.
I spotted that story, good one. OK, Bev, thanks very much. Have a good show.
We're back Monday from 6 a.m. Thank you for having me this week, and you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Putting up with me. Up next, it's Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. See you soon.
Forecast first.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your latest GB News weather update. It's going to be another fine and dry day for many of us once any fog and low cloud clears this morning, and it will once again feel pretty warm in the sunshine. There is a bit of a pesky easterly breeze though once again across the far southeast, and that will linger through much of the day. The breeze will also pick up across the northwest later on, but for many of us another dry and fine day, and as I said, it will feel fairly warm in the sunshine. Temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s in fact across the far south and east, and even across northwestern areas of Scotland will be in the low 20s, which is well above average for the time of year for these areas. Should stay fairly mild overnight as well. Some rural spots, particularly across some sheltered glens of Scotland, will chill off as the sun goes down this evening, but it should be a fine end to the day. We had the full moon last night, but it will still look pretty spectacular tonight, I think. Plenty of clear skies for stargazing this evening as well. Northern Ireland as well, seeing plenty of clear skies through this evening, but it's across the east coast where we'll start to see that cloud being dragged in overnight. So that will likely linger across eastern coast through Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning as well. It's probably going to be a bit more extensive through Thursday morning compared to this morning. So a cloudier start for many more of us to come on Thursday. But across western areas, clear skies will continue to dominate, particularly parts of western Wales, southwest England and parts of western Scotland as well. That's where temperatures will fall away a little lower. But with the breeze and the cloud further east, temperatures holding up into double digits for many areas. So probably a bit of a cloudier start to Thursday. The cloud will start to burn back though, particularly across the east coast where we continue to see this easterly breeze bringing a slightly fresher feel to these areas compared to more western parts of the UK. But across the west, another fine and bright and sunny day with temperatures well above average into the mid-20s for some of us. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Wednesday morning. In Leicestershire, the northbound M1 moving better now following the earlier accident.